insurance ain't an issue.
Yeah, liability.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
all
the-
concrete.
it's on the ordinance.
Please.
Okay, we ready? Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yep. All right. We'll get going here. Gotta wake up my feet. Okay, the Pine County Commissioners will meet today in Steve Holland. As you can see, I'm remote, and according to Minnesota statute 13D-02, we're meeting under those guidelines, two-way interactively, and I am located at the Discovery Center at 1400. Let's see, where are we at? Fort Pickens Road in Fort Pickens. Geez, I can't read this even where I'm at. This at Pensacola Beach, Florida. So anyway, we got that out of the way. We'll call the meeting to order and rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Room for open forum.
Is this when we will speak?
Anybody?
Is this when Lee will speak?
Yeah, if there is no time on the agenda otherwise for the public to speak on any of the issues, so if
Right,
someone
so if
wanted
you want to
to
speak,
address-
it's
When you're gonna wanna
your
speak,
turn
Lee.
now. We have one person in the room for sure, I think, Steve.
Okay, and if somebody wants, we allow 3 minutes for public forum, so somebody there want to keep a stopwatch on them? Go ahead.
How would be your time? Because you won't get to once the meeting gets going.
I'm called onto this order here because of a property line dispute on a building which is on the county tax forfeit property. And I just don't.
Can you introduce yourself quick
I did. I had a.
into the mic so everybody can hear you? Just introduce yourself.
State your name.
Oh, Lee Greenlee in Sandstone, Minnesota.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm not sure how to approach this. I guess this is new to me, to what I'm doing
Got
here.
3 minutes, so say what you want to say.
I just have, some, options on the land situation where my building is, which was requested to be removed or tore down. And options aren't working that way in either way to have it moved because it'll be so expensive to move and tear it down. There's just no money or finances for me to do this building that's been on my property there, which is alongside the county property. So I don't know what to say from here. But I've been, I guess when the tax assessors come down from this viewing it, they viewed that the property is over, the building is over on assessed on some of the county land on this thing. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you from here, I guess. And don't be called up to any of this. And it was kind of short notice on my way of having anything prepared, or whatever I need to know was limited. So I talked to Mr. Gregg over here, and he recommended me to put some stuff out there in regards of leasing the situation or a land trade or purchasing the property, or the options that were offered. So I guess we can go from there on that. I don't know if I have any questions anymore, or not now anyway. Anybody have any questions on from here where I go? I guess I'm not sure, unless I can down the line future talk about it or something.
Yep.
Thank you. We generally don't comment on that during open forum, but we maybe could use some advice from our legal counsel on how to proceed with that property, because I know it's on the consent agenda, I believe.
Mr. Chair, it will
Yes.
actually be on the Land and Zoning Advisory Committee report.
Oh, okay. I saw it, so. Anybody else for open forum? Anybody on a call in?
Oh, there is not.
Was that a no?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We'll move on then to Josh, can you take over the agenda here for a little bit? Because I can't see my screen.
Not a problem. We did just have two people walk in. We just went through public forum. Did you guys want to say anything? Okay, we'll let you do that before we move on. Yep.
I know we have on the agenda
Do you want to come to the mic? So
Yeah, so,
that- Please. Thanks, Gussie.
and make sure you state your name. We all know you, but do it. Thank you.
I'm Eileen Krupp, and I work for the Township of Sandstone, so just, I noticed that on the agenda you have assessments, or not the assessments, but actually the money from the timber sales and the money from tax forfeited. Okay, last year you took 10% away from the township of both of those things and kept them at the county. And I did talk to my commissioner and asked that be reviewed this year, because that's a critical amount of money to be taking from a township, any of the townships who they get so little. And I'm thinking about the gravel on the roads, right, Josh? The gravel on the roads. And it's been a tough year for most of the townships. So, and I know you have the voting machines coming up, and if you want me to talk about that now, I will. Otherwise, I'll wait if you want to accept that during the regular agenda.
I don't think we have public forum on that either. Yeah, so if you want to say it now.
Okay, so there was a demonstration. Both JJ and Terry were there. And having been a head election judge for 6 years, which is not even comparable to the amount of time that Terry's done this. I'm just speaking from the township perspective, where we have people, the average age of our election judges is about 70, I'm going to say, on a good day. So, and I'm not saying that's bad. What I'm saying is that we have a bunch of stuff in our head already. We put it there because we don't need it for 2 years again. And it's difficult at best to teach them. And I found that the Dominion machine was very difficult. I watched as they did the things that they did, and I thought, too many steps, too many steps. Not only that, when you have to put your ballot in the same slot that people are putting their ballots in to vote, I think that is not a good solution. An all-in-one would be fantastic, but not in that way, because it marks the ballot also. So that makes it suspect for fraud in my mind. I'm not even going to go to the lawsuits against Dominion. I'm trying to compare them apples to apples. So anyway, that's my opinion on that. And also one other piece of information. I think the guy's name was Trice, who is the president of the company, was telling us that when somebody asked, could you make a screen that was a touch screen as opposed to the gaming type device that you would use? And he said, no, that was against state law. So Wednesday, I called the Secretary of State's office, spoke to Justin, and Justin said, that's not against the law. It's assisted voting. As a matter of fact, our auto marks right now are a touch screen. And he didn't say it once, he said it twice. So my trust in him went down the drain. So anyway, that's it. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, is there anybody else for public forum? Okay, hearing none. Is there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, Pine County Administrator Dave Minke. There are no additions or changes. I just want to call out on commissioner updates. There's the Housing and Redevelopment Authority and Economic Development Authority report. At that time, there will be a request for spending some ARPA funds on a study that Sandstone is proposing. And so the county board could make a decision there on those funds if they wanted to. So I just wanted to call that out so folks were aware of it.
All right,
Move the agenda.
I'll second it.
all right. Ludwig making the motion, Lovegren second. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, Debbie?
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
yes,
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to approve the minutes of February 15th, regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and summary.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Debbie can call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. Aye. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, minutes of boards, reports and correspondence, the Minnesota Powers correspondence. Proposed change in monthly electric costs, Association of Minnesota Counties correspondence.
So move, Mr. Chair. Ludwig.
second,
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
It's a lot of money.
I'm
Wow.
not on that one, so.
Me neither.
All right, Debbie, call the roll.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
yes,
Thank you.
All right, we'll look at the consent agenda. We'll entertain a motion for that.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Otherwise, Debbie can call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. Aye. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, regular agenda facility committee. Who wants to take that one? Go ahead.
Can you, you took minutes on it, didn't you? When we talked to the, we talked about the jail.
I'll take facilities. Yeah, we had a quick meeting after the last board meeting. We just called it to address this issue with our jail that was over the last 2 years with the COVID and this and that, and the way our jail was built in the pod system, they can't separate inmates. It was all, it's 15 years old and that's the way they did it back then. So we're gonna do, the discussion was to do a study on the jail, how we can have a minimum impact of construction, but make it so we can separate inmates and and control the stuff when things come up. So it was two organizations submitted a bid to do the study. And BKV was the group that built the jail. And that's the group we decided to go with. They'd be the most familiar with it and be able to do it the cheapest. So we're just recommending that we'll spend $18,000 for the study on that construction cost. And then there's another study on a jail analysis that's separate from the building, but like what is happening in the next 10 years or whatever, like other counties and jurisdictions are doing that. And with the demographics, there's people that figure this stuff out and, you know, what is going to be expected of a jail facility our size and over the course of the next time. So that's the second study. And we didn't have a lot of discussion about that. And that's another $18,000. But I think afterwards we had a follow up with some emails with Rod reached out to other jurisdictions that said, yes, the jail study was the most, was a advantage thing to their building of their jail that they did, like Carleton County and other jurisdictions, because they can plan what's going to happen. So I think as a committee, we would recommend both studies. And if you have questions on that, I am not the person to ask on all this off the top of my head, but Rod is sitting in the room.
Yeah, I could just add, I guess I got the minutes here now in front of me. There's just so much with the heating and cooling and HVAC, and there's one thing, the aspects of you just can't put in a wall or move something without
Right.
cascading to affect something else. And the other thing is just, it was so nice you'd explain all the procedures and everything, how you got to have different people at different times. You can't mix people together. And if you bring people from one part to another, they can't be visible by other people. And that's all state rule and state law.
Well, I can, you can if you want to, Rod. I think it'd be good to touch on the juvenile issue that comes in, because they gotta be, if they do it, it's limited, they have to be completely separate, and the female issue and all, that. Something quick. Not all that. Yeah.
A lot to it.
All right, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So the juvenile issue, like Matt said, is, juveniles come in, they have to be out of sight, out of sound from any adults. Since the pandemic hit, we haven't taken a juvenile. So what that does to our facility or our agency is the deputies from the street are running them down to Lionel Lakes. And a lot of times they're being released from there, but that just takes a deputy off our street. I think the biggest thing is going to be the separation issues that we're having in the jail. Prior to the pandemic, we were running into situations where we didn't have proper separation. I always use the example of our Delta unit, which is females. At any separation piece, you got to have at least minimum of 3. And that's with minimum security, general population, and then special management. And that can be a lot of different things. Our facility was built, and our females, we have 2. So everything gets overflowed into our intake area, and intake's small already. And so we're overflowing there. And I know I don't want to get into a whole lot of stuff, but if you do have questions, I know one thing that the community, I think, would look at is, hey, we're 131 beds and we're 41 people. Why is that not, that those numbers don't jive, but 131 beds is the bed. Everything is double bunked in our jail. So when we take, it's a pandemic situation, we're putting everybody singly. Now that brings us down to 70 housing units, or 70 cells. And then we can only run at an 85%. So that brings us down to about 60 cells. And now everybody has to fit exactly based on their classification. I may have a number of classified people that can fit here, but I might have one that fits here. Nobody else can go in there now. And so that ties up other beds. So the way the jail was built was a big pod, and we put everybody in the pod, and everybody gets along, and the corrections staff makes sure of that. Now we can't put everybody in a big pot. We have to give everybody their little places to fit, and we just don't have that. So can we take the footprint and make those little spaces? That would be great. But I think that's above what, I'm going to be able to recommend. I can see what I think I need, but I think it would be really good money spent to have a study done. What does that future look like for the incarcerated people up there or out here? And maybe there's other changes that need to take place, because I think if we're going to spend money to do something, we just should do it smart and have the study done. The question was on that inmate study, as they called it. And after further research, I would highly recommend that too, because it plays well into the actual study of jail separation. Any questions?
Thank you.
Rod, I have one.
Yeah.
And not to be flippant about it, but it appears to me that we can't plan for jails for 50 or 75 years like we plan for a county garage, because about every 10 or 15 or 20 years, the whole correction thing changes and we have to be nimble enough to change with it. Is that a fair assessment?
That is an absolute fair assessment, and that's what's going on right now. The model we have is not being built out there right now. The pod system. They're kind of going back to a little bit of our old style, more of a hybrid in between. What ideally would be nice to have a big place, a big unit, and then have walls that can be opened and shut based on whatever the need is that day. Because classifications change all the time. People, we have to move them in and out. So. Okay, any other questions, anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to approve that.
Okay,
For both studies, correct?
Both,
To approve both
yes,
studies?
both studies, yeah.
I'll second that. I think it's important.
okay. So we got a motion and a second.
have one.
Yes. Yes.
When I read in the, I'm sorry. When I read in the agenda, it said 1818. I believe in the contract, it also has some amount for incidentals or
Yes.
however they worded that. And I think it's not to exceed 4,500, correct?
Thank you. Yes,
That
you are
wasn't in
correct.
there and I forgot to mention.
Is that per study?
Total.
For one.
Total for the whole, all of it.
Okay, I'll amend my thing to include the additional cost for travel or whatever it is for this.
I'll amend my second.
Okay. So then that'll bring, so the motion on the floor is to accept both studies. And then the
4,500 up to
4,500. So that would be what, 40,500?
not to exceed 4,500.
So the total amount would be $40,500. So that's what you guys are good on? Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, Debbie, you can call the roll.
District 4, Commissioner Waldam.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. Thank you.
All right. Did you guys want to talk about anything else, facilities, or was that it?
That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it.
I
Yeah.
was just focused on that.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, we'll move on to Land and Zoning Advisory Committee report.
You can start it off.
Kelly, you taking this or? One of you guys?
You can, or we can start and then. Okay. So we got the list, well, the first thing is that we had the North Pine Riders for the Snowmobile Club come. And we're talking about a grant where they can get a project done where they're gonna be fixing a bridge, correct? Or the trail, they need to fix the trail because the trail is so bad and it's been so much used more. So I had on my note, where's my note? On how much more the usage was. It was a huge percent. It was pretty amazing how many people are using those trails. And so they're gonna get a grant, or the project is $120,000. They can get federal funding for $90,000. So they're asking the county if we would split, and we would pay $15,000 of the additional, or the remaining 30. Which we had talked about, and we agreed that that was good money spending for the projects that are going on in our county and to allow that recreational. And that would come out of ARPA funds. And then we talked about the land auction. We've got some properties that we're going to be pulling from the land sale and having them revalued and then replaced on the land sale at the new value. And we came up with the land sale list that we have that's going to be going on. And we talked about different properties and how we could split them to make it more equitable for the county, but better for the people that are purchasing it also. So we've got those that are broken down with the property that's in Wilma Township, going from 120 acres, or they have 200 acres. And so we'll do a 80 and then an 80 and a 40. And then we have the land in Carrick Township that was 360. And we're going to go 120 acres and 160 and then 180. So breaking those properties up. We talked a lot about the outlot on Jackie's First Edition and that being a winter access for people to get onto the Cross Lake. what we found out is what we talked about was the fact that that interest was supposed to go to the property owners. And that didn't happen on some of the property owners. That was bypassed, or even, you know, as the sales come in the future, people forget to put that percentage, that interest to the outlet on their sales. So with the property owners that are on that road, and with the information that we got, and the fact that there are other property or public accesses to Cross Lake, it was determined not to keep that piece of property for public access, for winter access, but to actually have that so that the property owners could purchase that. And then it would be what it was intended to be when it was subdivided. Lee Greenlee was here earlier, and he was talking about his cabin. We have a cabin situation where the cabin was built on county land. There were a lot of things that went with that. Part of that was that there was supposed to be a land survey done prior to that being built according to the zoning. And the fact that it's on the waterway, there's two different zoning officials or entities that go with that. And the proper procedures were not followed. And so with that, the cabin was built on county land. And there's a whole bunch of information in the packet that talks about all of the correspondence and notifications that were given to Mr. Greenlee. So after discussing all of that, the committee was determined that it was not for public interest to deviate from the county policy, and that it would be need to be removed or just not kept by Mr. Greenlee, and the county would keep that. Any additions that you guys can think of to that one? Because that's, I think, a big. No? Okay. You, anything to add to that one?
No, I think, I don't know if the people can read the correspondence. That's probably the most important part. How we discovered it in 2019, and
Yeah.
now there was, I think, 2 years, there was a year extension already to get it removed.
Right. So we had a lot of discussion about that. There's something else I was thinking about with this. Oh, Gussie. So we had talked about the percentages that went to go towards the trails and the, what is it? The forest fund. So we've got the blight cleanup, we've got the trails, and then we have the timber development funds. And we did decide to keep those funds the way that they were, because we do have some trail expenses that are coming up where we're going to need to have that money. And so we understand that it's all taxpayer dollars. And then when you look at the big picture, what it would bring to the county to help with those funds and to bring those trails up to where we need them to be, it was decided to keep the funds there with the county, and then it can be relooked at next year. But we're starting to not have as many timber sales. And I mean, we had some really huge sales prior to when we did this, and all that money went to the townships and to the school districts. And now we have less that we're going to be doing. So it's kind of one of those things that we need to take the opportunity while we can. So that was decided to keep that money where it was.
Yeah. And the blight we have to keep.
Yeah.
Cleanup costs us a lot.
We have some properties that we have blight on that we have to clean up before we can do anything with it, and we're never going to get the money back out of them. So we do need to have that so that we can keep those proceeds to do those jobs, removing gas tanks and lots of tires.
All right, Kelly, did you want to add anything to anything, or?
I don't think so, just if you guys have questions on any of that big long list.
So I think what we'll do is we'll go through these kind of A, B.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
I do have a question about the access to Cross Lake. There are a couple of public accesses for summertime access, but wintertime access is really limited because both of the public accesses that people can launch boats at, you cannot drive a vehicle to get onto the lake using those public accesses because of the open water created by the river. So winter access is a real issue on Cross Lake. And that access allows a lot of people to access the lake and enjoy the lake.
I actually had a conversation with Greg too about that as far as, I think we need to look at some sort of decent winter access on Cross Lake, because there is a lot of, development or, economic development that could happen with that. And one of them was the old, that access right down off of past the village in there, the old mill. And that was closed. And I had actually talked to Maury about that. And so I think hopefully, we can look at trying to do something to get a decent access. And that one would lead right into the heart of town.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yeah, well,
so are you asking that we pull that parcel for this sale?
yeah, because I until we can figure something else out, there's not a lot of viable options for people.
Yeah, I think that's.
There's some, the DNR owns some land up by that new Hagee addition. Maybe we could work some kind of a deal. They used to have a fish green pond up there, but I don't believe they've done anything with that for years. I just think, there's a township road from Shangwatana Township that just ends right at the lake, but it's a very steep grade, and it's very hard to get on and off there. And there's some other semi-private.
I think it's funny because we had a lot of discussion about this little parcel.
Well,
during the committee, so.
And part of it was, they don't have an issue with winter access. They were more worried about, summer access is kind of what the landowners were talking about. So, and I don't think, as far as I know, I don't think even if this is done today, they weren't planning on putting a gate on it, as far as I know, for winter stuff. They just, for the summer type of access, because they put docks there and stuff. So they just didn't want that technically public. But I think trying to develop a decent access on Cross Lake is something we need to do for winter. So
I agree. I think it's a very much used lake, and it's a lot of economic development to southern Pine County on all winter long.
And is there a way we can just,
County?
well, but or if you kept it at I guess, can we, until we get another one going, I guess I'm asking, I don't know, to get, to just kind of keep it where if they could still allow winter access on it?
I think that's possible, and maybe I think you could have an easement. If we keep it on the sale, we could probably say there's a winter access easement only from some date to some date. I think that's possible to do that, and then we can still move it to whoever buys it. They have to accept that easement.
Okay.
And then we don't have to own and maintain it. That would be my suggestion if we do that, but I don't know how that works.
If I may, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So I just want to circle back to the discussion at the land committee. Because at the land committee, I mean, we talked about the winter access need. There is another winter access up on the northwest end. I know Debbie and I talked about it, and there's hardly any parking there. And that is a Pekegama Township access. And so there is that other option. When we talked at the land committee, the concern was that landing was never intended to be public. And so that's just something to keep in mind as you're discussing, is it was never intended to be a public access. It just happened. I know that the landowners out there would like to see it not be a public access, because when they purchased their interest, it was not a public access.
Kelly, the reason that it wasn't intended to be a public access, right? When the subdivision was platted, those lots received a fractional interest in this common piece of property. There was never an intent that those landowners would then make the public access across that private land.
Oh, it's just an association access. I do remember that
And
part.
so
now.
the county's interest got to the county because some of the lots, three of the lots went tax forfeit. Those lots have a fractional interest in this common.
So the 3 of the lots just never, when they were purchased, got their interest.
They forgot to put it. on
Right,
the
they
deed.
forgot to put it on the deed, or the people didn't want to pay the extra for the interest, so 3 interests just got left behind.
So I guess the reason to review a little of that history is if it were simply, land that when tax forfeited and the county had an interest in that land, then we could evaluate all the characteristics of, is it a good public access? Versus in this case, it seems like and this is where the committee, I think, spent most of its time, is the land really was intended for that subdivision to access the lake.
Yeah, I do.
And so how, what's our role as the county as the intervening landowner through tax forfeiture to change that?
I think our first option should be go to the people that are part of that group and say, here you go.
Which we've done in the past.
Right.
Yes.
And let them have first right of refusal or something before we do anything.
So
There's also a difference in some properties when they sell, when they subdivide it, it'll say right on their outlot A for public use. So, we have subdivisions where they actually have that outlot is for public use. That was never the intent on this one.
And I think we could, you could pull it and we can work on a different access for a year, or maybe we just need to make a new winter access a higher priority and get working on it. Because we had the same conversation a little less in depth a year ago. And it wasn't made a priority. And so maybe now we need to make a new winter access more of a priority of working on that.
So is it hard to reach out to the remaining lot owners and say, you have X amount of time to decide something, or we're gonna do this? They expect it to sell now, don't they?
Jump in, Greg.
You want to come to the mic though?
Greg Beck, Pine County Land Commissioner and Forester. We discussed this last year, and I remember Steve was there in this conversation, and it was assumed that that was possibly one of our only accesses for winter on the lake, because the other 2 accesses, which are DNR, are on the river, and they are unsafe because of the winter currents during the winter time. But since then, and then at that time, we decided just to leave it in the tax forfeited stage because we weren't quite really sure what to do. And I also contacted Reese, who had mentioned that the 3/16 interest, in fact, does make it a public access. And we let it stay in that situation. And then at about a month or 2 ago, the neighbors caught wind of this and figured that those who had their interest might lose it, or it also might add to summer access, which is extremely a tight landing area. So there was a lot of concern about that. And at that point, Maury contacted the auditor's office, and then also contacted myself. And through our conversation, it was determined that the summer access, public access, is something that's a very concern of them. And they also want to make sure that everybody in the development, their access is not taken from them, which it won't be. Winter access has always been, even Maury said he remembers 30 years ago or something using that as a winter access, public access, although it's not totally public. He also mentioned there was a couple other accesses on the lake. One was from the east side of Crooked River Road. That's not really 100% determined if that's public or not. We wanted to do a little more research on it. And then there's a development up in, Aubrich subdivision. And the township has some ownership and interest that they're maintaining that access. And even though there's not a lot of, there looked like there was a little bit of parking, but not very much. Definitely more than on the Jackie's addition. So with that, it does appear that there is access to the lake. And through the forfeiture of Jackie's addition, if there was no other access, I think that it would be something we would want to consider to retain for public access. But in this situation, and part of our conversation at the advisory committee was to keep it on the sale to adjoining landowners only. We could possibly retain easements on it. We could also take it off of there, but at least for right now, we will leave it on there and have some time to research it out a little bit longer than just making a quick decision on it. It looks like we do have wintertime access, so the public would not be barred from that. And we could possibly retain easements onto the 3/16 interest if we ever wanted to sell those lots to adjoining landowners. But I think at the time, my recommendation and also the committee's discussion was that we put it on the adjoining land sale, adjoining landowners only sale list. When we have it appraised, Troy Stewart's pretty good at checking out backgrounds and coming up with creative ideas on how to solve situations like this, because this is not the first time we've had something like this occur. And at that point, do a little more research on the public accesses, not the ones on the river, but the others, to make sure that we do have public access on the lake for ice fishing and other purposes. So that was our recommendation at that time. Any other questions?
I would just add, and then put, a decent, some sort of public access, kind of higher priority or whatever, I agree with what you're saying. I would just like to see a decent, little bit more accessible. I've never been on any of them that you're talking about, not with a vehicle, but just like Commissioner Holland was talking about, it'd be nice to have just with a parking lot and something if you wanted to bring a ATV or snowmobile on there or that kind of stuff. So I guess that's just my thing is I would, look into that a little bit more.
Would that be, the DNR would take it and manage it, and the DNR staff would build it, construct it, maintain it, pay for it? It would come out of state funds or county?
This piece or the other one?
Well, when you,
If we do another one?
What we're
yeah,
looking,
if you create one, who's gonna take care of it?
I guess it would depend on whose property it is, right?
Correct. It would, yeah, the county has never taken the position of doing any lake accesses at all that I'm aware of, although we do have others, but it's not to say that we could not get into that as a public, service for the community at some point. I know we've talked about having parks and that too. So, I mean, it's something that the board has considered in the past. But right now, we're not in any position to take on administration of that.
No, yeah, I'm not for that. I was just wondering.
I'm not into
if-
that
if-
either.
If that was the
DNR
thought,
can have
the
access.
DNR.
Yeah.
And at that point, if we wanted to go that direction, we would invite them in for a discussion of doing a conveyance of if it was a tax forfeited property. And we have done that before. Typically, it doesn't cost them anything. It's just a lot of time to get from point A to point B, but it does happen and can.
Okay.
I guess I'd like to look at it more because we had this, I think, was it the same situation up there with us in Sturgeon Lake where we owned property, lake access, the DNR wanted to take it to put another landing. It was just, a lot of people probably don't realize this. Like
Yeah,
you
no.
had said, neighbors caught wind of it now and.
I recall that one.
They're part of that original audition there.
Yeah, I do recall that. And
We almost
I
lost
think
ours.
it was, what happened on that was, there's different ways to creatively absorb that type of forfeit interest. And I think the group that was using it created an association. And then it was conveyed to them as it should have been in the first place. But yeah, that was a mess and quite a bit of a concern there too for those individuals.
You know, I look at it on the viewpoint that if I purchased this property on a lake, thinking that it was going to be a private and it was just going to be the people that own it that have that access, I wouldn't appreciate it if everybody else and their brother used that as their access to get onto the lake. You know, having lived on a lake, having somebody drive in my yard would not have made me a happy camper, you know.
And let's remember, before this got forfeited, it has been forever and ever. So they have allowed it. They're just worried about summertime because it is so small. And a couple of them have docks and that's what they plan on doing there. They just don't want all of a sudden public showing up and having their stuff there and saying that they can do whatever they want. I have had no indication they want to close it as a wintertime access. But I mean, they can do whatever they want if that's the case, but if they did, there is other access anyways. It'd just be nice to have a better access, I guess. Because it is a very populated lake and a lot of people come up to go fishing there and do whatever in the winter, so. But
And
you can see in
Mr.
this.
Chair, I agree with you. I think if we could keep it as a winter access only for now. I've been on those other accesses. The one coming off Crooked River Road is, it's like driving down, about a 3-to-1 slope to get to the lake. You slide down and you put it in 4-wheel drive and you slide up. You get a run at it. It's not for the faint of heart. We want people to use these lakes. They come here, they spend money in our restaurants and gas stations and hardware stores. And, the Hagee property was a very popular spot for people the old Tullison family didn't live there for a number of years, and it got to be the popular spot for people to park and to access the lake with their ATVs for winter fishing. And now those lots are sold, or being sold, so that we lost that access on the east side of the lake. So I think we need to make a concerted effort to work with the DNR and do something, but I would hate to see it leave in the meantime for winter access.
All right, well, let's back up here to number A. And that's the Northern Pine Riders. We do need a motion on all these, right? Yeah, so the Northern Pine Riders Snowmobile Club grant match requests.
And Mr. Chair, if that would include approving the agreement as well.
Okay,
So I will make a motion that we do the match contribution of $15,000 to the Northern Pine Riders Association for the Sioux Line Railroad right away, or for the Sioux Line Railroad, to fix that for this recreation, and then also to approve the resolution number. Is it a resolution or just the agreement?
Just the agreement.
The agreement with them and with the city of Willow River for that money.
I will second that if you're done with that.
Blah, blah.
all right, we got a motion and a second. I have a little bit of discussion. Is this a summertime trail as well, or is it just winter? Do you know?
Mr. Chair,
Oh.
yes,
Yes.
members of the board, yes, this is the Sioux Line Trail. So the
Okay.
county actually owns this trail.
Okay.
And then the club does the maintenance.
Okay, sounds good.
ATVs use it a lot.
Yeah,
Right.
that's how
Yeah, I don't know if Terry found her number, but I think the use is up 60% or
was
even
huge.
huge. I mean,
Okay.
it's been huge since COVID.
great. That's awesome. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
Sure. District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldem.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so then we'll go to B, land auction sales. 2022 proposed land auction parcels.
I'll move those.
I'll second them.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on that?
I got something quick. They will, then they're getting back on the auction, correct? You pull them off and you put them back on? If this is what I understand.
Yes.
Yes.
Kelly or Greg, the ones where we're pulling them off of the auction, the previous ones that are on the listing right now for sale, those will be pulled and then they'll be reassessed and put back on the auction, correct?
For sale again. Thank you.
Does this resolution include that fractional interest parcel? So do you want to remove that one from the list?
I think we were planning on keeping it.
I think we're gonna keep it on there because the landowners might buy it,
Yeah.
right? Joining.
But with that, we were gonna try to
Yeah, so,
figure out a better solution there,
yeah.
so.
So just for clarification, if the resolution is approved as it is, that parcel will be offered for sale. The county's interest in that parcel will be offered for sale. The adjoining landowners would have the opportunity to bid, but not an exclusive opportunity.
Wouldn't they have an exclusive?
Oh, it is exclusive. Okay.
Yeah.
Only to them.
Right.
And if they don't buy it, then we gotta figure something else out. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that?
I want to be clear on that. Because it is exclusive to the landowners.
It is
right?
exclusive.
Because that's part of their initial plot.
Right.
Okay. I think it should stay that way.
Yep.
So I gotta get this straight here now. So if I had bought lot 4 35 years ago, or my family had, and I got that outlot as part of my sale. Now I'm gonna have to buy a share in that outlot again.
No, I think
Oh, you're
some
gonna
of
buy
them
the
don't
lot,
have an,
Not the shares.
So there's a few lots who do not have an interest, and so I would assume those folks are the ones who will likely be interested. But if you are one of those landowners in that subdivision and you're concerned about the public use, maybe then yes, you do want to buy another share of it.
Did we do it last year where we had the same thing that was happening and we offered it to the people that did not have a share first? So they were able to have their interest.
Correct. And I mean, like one of the lots in there, they got an easement instead of an interest, and that happens quite often is the language got changed just slightly.
makes sense, Steve? No?
Yeah, it seems to me like we don't quite have it all figured out yet, but
I think what will happen is if they don't want to buy it, then we gotta kind of go back to the drawing board and the intention is to keep it in that group. And then if they don't want to step up and do something with it, then we'll have to readdress it. So,
But I don't think that's gonna be a problem.
yeah. Okay, any other discussion? Deb, you can call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
no.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldem.
Yes.
Thank you.
So just so we're clear on that, that was all of B is what that was what okay, yeah. I probably should have did A, B. and
No, it's
C.
fine. It was that, so it was all under B.
Yep, we did that. All right. So now we're on to withdraw previous offered parcels from the public land sale list.
I think that was under that too.
That was all under
Yeah,
2022.
we're on C.
Okay. It was on a different page, so. Is everybody good on that? So it was everything all the way, yep. Everything under. Yeah, B, okay,
We had resolutions underneath.
Yep.
there.
yep, perfect. All right. So then now we're under to C, county encroachment policy deviation requests. And this is what we had heard. So yeah,
You want me to give a little
yeah,
background,
just
Mr. Chair?
so we get caught back up.
So the county policy, when we find improvements on county memorial forest usually, is that the landowner needs to remove them. And so we've been working with Mr. Greenlee for almost 3 years now about his cabin encroachment. He's gotten extensions and now we are past the last deadline for him to remove it. And so now he has requested from the county board that we deviate from the county policy and allow him to keep that on the county land. And really, the other options would be to sell him a portion of it or lease it to him. And so that would be what he would prefer than having to remove it.
Okay. And this is keeping with the county policy.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's non-conforming, I think, in the Kettle River Scenic Act or River.
Well,
isn't it?
so there's 2 ordinances, zoning ordinances that cover it. The first is the Sandstone Township zoning ordinance. And I believe from what was said at the meeting, it doesn't meet the setback of that ordinance. And no permit was applied for that ordinance. And should there have been one, there would have had to been a survey. And then there's also the Kettle River Wild and Scenic River ordinance that covers the property as well, that there was no permit applied for.
Well, and don't both of those also have it required that you have a survey to make sure that you're on the correct property and that you're,
The Sandstone Township ordinance does.
I don't think you want to set a precedence that just because you made a mistake and put it on county property, we have to sell it to you or lease it to you or anything other than you need to get it off of there.
Look at how often we fly, because it's expensive to get
Yeah.
our pictures.
Yeah.
We can end up with 10 cabins built out on county land somewhere and then, well, what's there? And
Yeah.
again, now we know, well, you did it for this guy.
right.
Yep. Yeah. All right, so we need,
I will move that, Mr. Chair.
okay,
I will second it.
okay, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, Debbie, you can call the roll.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we're on to D, land fund, approve resolution, we'll use a resolution this time, huh? 2022-13. And that was to keep the land fund the way it was last year, right?
I have a question here. And I know we can move it, I can have discussion, but do we always set this annually?
Yes, the resolution has the specific language in it that we will review it annually.
Yeah, that's what I want. So
Okay,
May I ask a question? Is that a state requirement or that's the county board's requirement?
That's the county board's requirement.
Just because we have the effect on the townships and everything else.
Right. And I do want to clarify, this isn't just township dollars when we take these percentages. So it's not that we took 10% from the township last year. It's the county general fund gets a little bit less, the school gets a little bit less, and the township does get a little bit less.
Yeah, it's spread across.
Right.
Yeah, I know. It's still less dollars for people that need it, but I know we have some big expenses coming. So I will move that.
I'll second it.
okay, is there any other discussion on
Yeah.
that?
I have a,
Yeah, go ahead.
on the C part of it, you get, okay, first of all, 5%, 5%, 20%. That's been the same percentages for years? Nothing's changed on the
No.
percentages?
So
Yeah,
it's the
we changed last
same
year.
as last year.
Yeah, we changed.
Previous years, the blight, we had it done, there was one year that we actually did 20% on the blight. And did nothing for timber development, and the Parks and Rec is just pretty, it's new. We just started doing that 2 years ago. State statute sets the maximum the percentages can be. And so the Parks and Rec is the 20% maximum it could be. For the others, it's a 30% maximum.
Okay, and then on C, 20% of tax forfeit land sale and timber sale revenues for purposes of acquisition and maintenance of county parks. Or so what's with the acquisition? You use the money to try to acquire more land, buy land, or what are we trying to?
So the thought with that fund is we have currently applied for 2 separate grants and state bonding funds to build out the Obastar Trail. And so there's matches to those grants and state bonding that we are going to need to produce. And so that is the intention of what these funds would be used for, is for that Obastar Trail build out.
That was, I think, yeah, and that was to connect something too, wasn't it? The Overstar Trail connected.
Right, it
to
connects,
another.
it connects North Branch to Hinckley.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. Deb, you want to call the roll?
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig. District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're through the land stuff now. We'll move on to technology committee report. So we did have a meeting. Most of it was on our cybersecurity assessment. All went pretty decent. I think, what would you say, Steve? I mean, Ryan and his team already was doing most everything we needed.
Yeah, it actually started, I think, in December when I was at the AMC conference, and I went to a seminar on cybersecurity and put on by MCIT. They sponsored it, and I just made a note to myself I sent a note to David and to Ryan to make sure that we're on top of this. And Ryan got a checklist, and he had checked all the boxes that we're supposed to. The thing that's scary about cybersecurity is when people like MCIT start saying things like, you know, if some of these things continue the way they are, I'm not sure we can continue to insure counties against cyber attacks. So then what do? So we have to be very, very diligent about what we're doing as people that have electronic devices, and people, all of our workers do, we do. We just have to be very, very cautious of what we're doing, and that's why we get those little tests every once in a while to see if anybody clicks on a phishing scam or whatever, so that they test our system all the time, because we don't want to end up when somebody fell asleep at the wheel for just a second and gave out some data that they shouldn't have. So we're pretty well prepared, I believe. But you know, you're one click away from disaster. So we just have to be on our toes all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the technology meeting, was cybersecurity. So
We did talk briefly on election security because that was, they were going into the voting machine stuff after that, but it was just the current security measures in place for election security. So, but yeah, it was a pretty quick meeting, and we hadn't had a meeting for like 6 months or something. Wasn't July or something, so.
right.
So Steve just wanted to get together and have a meeting, so that's what it
Yeah.
was. No, it was a good meeting. It was good to hear that. That's, that these guys do a great job, so. Otherwise, there's nothing there to vote on. So we'll move on to voting equipment ad hoc committee report.
Better go first or should I?
You seem a lot more
Well,
experienced.
so I went in there, it's been a hard one for me because Dominion was one of the machines that were being looked at, and there's so much of Dominion on the news. So going into it with an open mind and looking at the different machinery, and the reality is Dominion has not been proven guilty of anything. So they've been in the forefront of the investigations, but they have not been found to have any tampering with their machines. So with that understanding, we did the two different demonstrations. I will be honest, I am an ES&S person. I've worked on their machines. The machine that we're talking about buying for the townships is the one that I've used here for many years for the county to do our absentee voting on. And I like the machine, and I like the company that we work with, and I like everything about it. I did like that machine better. The Dominion machine to me was more complicated. I've talked to other election judges, and I've talked to some other people that were part of the demonstration, and they all felt the same thing. They looked at the machine, the Dominion machine, it's all-in-one machine. So you've got your handicap voting assistant machine as part of that. So you can use it in two ways. You can stand at that machine and do your voting, which stops everybody from being able to put their ballots in the machine, which I don't believe that was the intent to go that way. The other machine, the other way is it's still attached to the big counting machine, and it would be off in a different thing, and you've got a big remote control for it, and it's not touchscreen, which Gussie hit on that earlier. The machine that we use right now is touchscreen, and it's easy and it's simple, and this had a big like an Atari control on it, and I can't see a lot of the people that we had that would use that machine because they can't see or they can't hear being content with that controller. I think that would be a harder thing for them. So with everything, the one thing that they talked about was talk to the other townships and see what they think about us and what they think about the machines. So during a break, I did call a couple of the other counties, and they said that the guys were just excellent customer service, which I believe that they are. The ones for the Dominion machine, I believe that they do have excellent customer service. I just didn't like their machine as much. So after talking to other people and after watching that, I would recommend that we stay with ES&S and get the ES&S. It's going to cost us more money. I think it's $130,000 more to go versus ES&S machines and sea change for the Hava machine, correct? So it'd be working with two different companies for those machines, but they work together and they work together well. Versus going with the Dominion machines through a private company. So it wouldn't be working with Dominion, but with the private company. But I would suggest that we stick with ES&S and get the machines through them.
I agree.
And just a question I have is, like you said, the Dominion is an all-in-one, so honestly, you probably wouldn't just want one. You'd want one to tabulate and one for the handicap voting, so.
This one is set up so that it's both. So if I wanted to vote on the Dominion machine and I wanted to vote using that handicap accessibility, what you would do is the head judge would have a fob and they would have to go place that next to the machine. And then that would tell it that somebody's going to be voting on that other ballot. And then they would go to a different area and they would vote, and it's connected to the machine, and then they would go back and it would print their ballot.
Okay.
So, both of those ways you're stopping, I think of like Pine City and Pokegama and Windermere, where there's so many people that are voting, that would stop that process. That would stop it where I can just go vote and throw my machine or my ballot in the machine. I would have to wait for, which isn't a big thing, but to wait for somebody to put the fob on there and get the ballot and then have it all work out, and then to go back and have your ballot printed and read it and then put it in the machine. So,
yeah, that doesn't sound like a real good thing, or it'd probably make people nervous and,
yeah.
Mr. Chair. Well, just for the conversation, my phone was lit up about that Dominion thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I wasn't briefed on anything on your committee or what you were exposed to, but everything that I heard was do not go with Dominion.
And I think a lot of that
all
is the
And they all
name.
were constituents in my,
Yeah. Like I said, I think a lot of it, Dominion has a horrible name, because they've been called out so many times, through this election process. But then, like I also said, it hasn't been proven that they did wrong.
I understand that.
Yeah, so, but, so looking at it on the other aspect, and I do understand that, and I'll be honest, it was hard for me to go look at a Dominion because I've heard so much stuff about it.
Why would I worry about the support if they're in the middle of a lawsuit and something does happen? Is Dominion make the product, or are they just selling the product and that's another company thing? I don't know. Are they wholesaling that thing or selling it, or do they own the actual?
That's a Kelly one.
So the company that we were looking for is the Minnesota company, the Minnesota dealer of Dominion. And so like
Okay.
the support would be through the Minnesota dealer. And so you're buying a Dominion machine. It's like you're buying Ford, but yet you're not going right to the Ford plant and buying it.
Right, but so if Dominion is in trouble, there could be problem with support, right?
Maybe
I know.
yeah, I
nobody has a
struggle with
crystal
it too, because I mean, in Wisconsin, there's a lawsuit that Dominion's part of. ES&S is too, but that's just not the headline. And so it is what it is.
So just because I'm looking at the dollar figure as well, but because Dominion is so much cheaper, or maybe it ain't, it sounds like a lot. Yeah, but what I was getting at with these machines, let's just say my township of Mission Creek, we have one handicap machine and then we have one tabulator. If a township like that had two of these Dominion machines,
They'd have one.
you could only have one, but what I'm saying is if you had one designated as the tabulator, one designated as the handicap one.
I don't think you can do that because that one machine works together.
Okay,
Yeah.
so.
And you could, but I don't know why you would.
But I guess what I'm saying is then that would obviously bring the price way up, probably
It's a
to
whole
equal,
process, we would.
you know,
Yeah, you
because
wouldn't
I
have to
can,
do that because there's the separate module
okay,
for the assistive voting device
but it stops the
for a
flow.
brief moment.
Yeah,
Okay.
so what they did and how they demonstrated it was they put the fob up to the machine and they got it set up for the handicap voter. And then we went and fed ballots into the machine while that person was voting.
Okay,
So they did demonstrate that you continue voting, everything continues while that person's voting, unless they're voting on that machine.
You go
which-
right up next to them while they vote?
Well, no, you can, but we wouldn't do it that way.
Yeah.
We would have it be a separate. But then I heard from one of the townships too, and they said our town hall isn't set up that we could have it that close. Because you only have so far. How far is it that you can go from the machine? Do you remember?
6 feet.
6 feet?
Oh.
So she said, for us to set it up so that you can have your tabulator here, and then you have to have that machine. She said, our town hall isn't set up that you can be 6 feet away and have confidentiality in how you vote.
mhm.
So she said it just won't work for our township, which is another factor that goes with that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get my basis wrapped around spending more money, but I think
Mr.
we're on the right page.
How
Yeah,
much more is it?
Josh,
go ahead.
130.
yeah, I am too. I would go with the committee's recommendation, but my question revolves more around when we put stuff out for quotes or bids, we're kind of bound to buy from the lowest responsible bidder. I think that's what all of our bids always say, and we've traditionally bought, if we're buying road graders or whatever we're buying. So
And I think like,
how do we navigate that
I
section?
think like this is like why I was asking these questions on how you can justify spending more. But it just seems, like with a road grader, there's obviously a huge amount of money difference between road graders because of what they are, not apples to apples. And I don't think we're comparing apples to apples with this. These aren't the same machines. They're, so that's why I wanted to clarify a few things. When I get my ear bent, why'd you spend another 150,000 when you could have got this one for cheaper? So that's why I was asking these questions. So.
Yeah, if I could jump on with that, we chatted briefly too of trying to get the best value and recognizing the fact, like Steve had said, for the dollar spent, and
Yep.
that's already been negotiated, determined, the best possible price is already out there, right?
So my understanding, this is their state contract. So this is the
Yeah.
deal. Dominion got a sweet deal and they went way below what they should have had gone to get us to buy their machines. So I think that that was part of the difference. And they had said that, I mean, it was said over and over that, wow, he got you a really good deal on negotiating that price for the machines. So the other part that
Can I
goes.
just ask a
Yep.
point of information? But the price for that is the state bid price.
He actually gave us lower than the
He gave us
state bid
lower, okay.
price
Yeah.
on the Dominion.
So I don't remember where I was gonna go, sorry.
So we need a motion on this?
Well, if you want to proceed,
We need to
which
proceed.
you could make a motion to purchase the ES&S equipment.
She did
And
No, I didn't.
Uh-uh.
recommended.
Yeah, I'm
the
recommending.
total cost is $337,435. We have an expected or known amount of grants of $163,552. We have programmed $150,000 of ARPA funds, and that's a fungible number, right? You could make that number bigger or smaller. It's just a number. And then that would leave $23,883 of fund balance from the election equipment fund. That would round out the balance.
Could we use it all of, keep the funds where we have them for the county and use up the ARPA amount? Could we do that?
We
So then
could
we always
until
have
you
a-
see the list afterwards where we're already over committed for ARPA funds.
Oh.
And we've been saving to buy these machines.
Yep.
So I mean, it's not like we have to try to figure out where the money's gonna come from. It's in an account for this.
Then there'll be balance left over. You're not draining it.
Right,
Correct.
yes.
There's about $70,000
Oh.
set aside that I originally thought we were gonna have to use all of to purchase.
Yeah, and
Responsible.
Oh, I know what I was gonna say before. The other aspect with the Dominion versus the ES&S machine is you've got a little township like Wilma Township where they have 20 some voters. And right now they have the auto marker, the handicap machine that is what they use. With the ES&S, they'll still only have that machine, but if we went to Dominion, they would have to have the tabulator. It would be the whole machine. They would have the option, still the hand count.
Right?
And
They
put
don't
them in
have to
the-
use the tabulator.
Right, but they would get the full machine instead of just the one that they have to have by law. And we have a few counties or a few townships and cities like that.
and when's the last time we bought this equipment?
2006.
So does it have a life expectancy of?
So this equipment is good through 2034.
Okay.
Likely. Obviously, we don't ever know what technology is going to do, but
Yeah.
right now it's looking like we'd be good through 2034.
Okay. And the ones we currently have are non-compliant or breaking down or?
They're not non-compliant.
Okay.
They run, the operating system is Windows 7, which wasn't
Okay, I
supported for
remember.
more than going on, well, over 2 years now.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make them non-compliant
Yeah.
because they're not connected to the internet and things. But we also have a lot of breakdown issues.
Yeah.
I don't even know, I didn't even keep track of that 2020 election, how many we had to go switch out in an emergency. We have 4 townships that use the auto mark for the township election, and I had to go switch one out the other night because they just aren't working because they're so old and
Yeah. Well, getting that many years out of a piece of electronic equipment is, we're doing very well. So, yes.
Yeah, if we can get till 2034 on a new batch, we'd be doing great.
Yeah.
right, our bonds will be paid off.
Right.
So as of now, we have a motion?
No.
No,
there's-
No?
Somebody
Okay,
make a
so we
motion.
need a motion and go from there.
I will make a motion that we go with the ES&S voting machines.
And I'll second it.
Is there any other discussion?
I just think, I'll just add.
Yep.
I think it's an important piece of infrastructure that it's okay to use ARPA money and invest in that.
Yeah.
for us.
Well,
Otherwise, we're levying those dollars and it's nice to have a good piece of good equipment. So,
and, you know, this is just another thing that people need to realize that voting is a very serious thing and they need to do it. I mean, this is the elections themselves, the equipment, what it cost, the auditor's office to do them. It's a big deal. So, and this county's always done fairly well at turning out for elections. So, it's, people got to do it. I've talked to people that are like, oh, I was busy. Well,
Yeah.
the polls are open for what, 12 hours?
Well, and for how many months before that?
Exactly. So,
You know, the other thing is with spending the extra money, I am as cheap can get. But if I have peace of mind on something, which with all the phone calls that we were getting and the texts and the emails, for people to have the peace of mind to go vote is volumes. You know, I had one person say, even if you get the Dominions for free, please do not do the Dominions. I watched them and, you know, it's just the complication with them. So, yeah, I think it's.
well, and there's a lot of stuff surrounding elections nowadays, and if it's gonna make it any harder on people, they just don't do it, you know, and that's where I'm still the one that likes to go to the poll and cast my ballot there and
Should be really easy for people to
it
vote.
should be very easy. And sometimes I've been there where you could tell people are uneasy and so, yeah, I didn't like what you guys said about the other equipment, so. All right, any other discussion? All right, Deb, you can call the roll.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Thank you.
You know, I'd like to add too, that we were kind of nervous if we'd have the machines for the August election, and we have been told that we will have them. So that's a huge plus too.
All right. One other, just, I doubt we would need it, but do you keep the old ones as some sort of backup or?
No.
Okay,
No, they're giving us $500 for each one, and
All right.
we're really happy with that.
You don't have to pay to get rid of them. Usually you gotta pay to get rid of
Well,
them.
the problem is we do have a bunch of extras that they'll only trade them in 1 for 1.
Oh,
So
okay.
we will have to get rid of some.
Yeah.
But we won't want to use them because it's 2 different
Yeah, No,
softwares.
Well, we don't have room to store them because they're monsters.
all right. Thank you. Thanks, Kelly. Thank you guys for going through all that. I know that was a
Yeah,
lot of
thank you,
work
guys.
and,
That's-
You're
and
welcome. It's
Okay.
fun seeing the differences, you know, seeing what they had.
we will move on to commissioner updates, Arrowhead counties.
I missed it. I was not here.
Okay, extension. I don't have my notes.
You know, I do. Actually, no, I didn't write any down.
I can look it up.
Going blank. They have interviews coming up for the 4-H coordinator. There was a lot of discussion about the 4-H coordinator and how we've gone through so many of them in such a short period of time. They did do the interviews.
Is Ruth there now?
Ruth was there. Yep, she was good. And it was good because she's a 4-H parent and she's been active in 4-H. So it
She's
was-
gonna be good.
Yeah, yep, she's very good. But they talked about the interviews that they did with the 4-H people to find out what the issue is. And that's something that they will continue to be working on to see if we can keep somebody longer. Katie Hagan is our new ag educator. And I just went down to see if she was here. And she's not here, but I was hoping that we could bring her in and introduce her. But she's not here today. But she's going to be an excellent asset. She's comes from Hinckley. She's a farm kid from Hinckley. And she comes from a family that she would have been working on the farm. She wouldn't have been one of the kids sitting in the house. She'd be one getting dirty. So I'm excited about what she has to offer. Anything else you can think of?
No, I just pulled up the agenda. Yeah, we talked about the new ag educator, the 4-H, yeah. Yeah, and like Terry said, we had a lot of talk about the 4-H director and trying to get that under control here. So that's why we haven't rehired right away. Just going through a bunch of stuff, some assessments. We did talk about the farm family of the year, right? But that's going back to the next meeting and the budget. Otherwise, that was it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I attended that meeting. I
Yes,
so
you
rarely
did.
attend extension committee meetings, but I think there were a couple of takeaways on the 4-H coordinator position. There was a commitment by Jan to build relationships with the Fair Board. And then there was a request for the Extension Committee members to be more engaged in the Federation meetings, because that is really where the 4-H program would be strengthened.
Mhm. All right, any questions on that? Nothing? Steve, no? NLX,
NLX, they talked, it was very short, actually. There wasn't a whole lot that they were talking about, but let's see. There's big discussion right now going on the fact that Sandstone had been a major part of the discussion for a long time on the NLX as being a place where they could do repair work on the trains and that type of stuff. And they've been kind of eliminated from that. And so there was a lot of discussion. Lenny Bonander talked about the need to have 2 platforms in Pine County, one in Hinckley and then one in Sandstone. As Sandstone has so many things, Pine County so large, that would help benefit all of the people. So that was a big talk. They're talking about the ads. There's media ads. They've been doing a lot of, oh shoot, what do you call it? When people can give their,
The open houses.
public, where you can go and, no, not the testimony. It's getting in that old brain thing.
I mean, like media events, right?
Well, they have the media events and then they have a lot of people doing surveys. They're doing surveys to discuss what's going on and what they want. And they're saying that the surveys are really good and they want to see the train go forwards. There's ads, there's digital ads, the Star Trib, Fox News, people, apps, when you play your games and that type of stuff. They're just keeping working forward. There's a video coming to a close with the final production. So there'll be a video going out about it. Yeah, that was about it with the NLX.
I have a question here, Mr. Chair. And Reese, maybe you'll have to help me on this, so I received a call from Andy Johnson, who's must be the
Yep.
chair now.
Yes.
And because I'm on that,
Yep.
but I was gone, but
Yeah.
we have not been paying dues. We decided, I think, the fall of 13. And we haven't been paying dues since, no dues since 14. But they want to have us be a voting member, and I have never wanted to be a voting member if we're not a dues paying member, just because it could create some issue. But their lawyer, one time I did not to vote on spending, but just to vote chair and vice chair and get some staff in place. That's the one time I voted on that, but we didn't spend any money. So my question is, if we are providing a space for the meetings, it isn't listed as a value to membership, but I don't think we should vote if we're not paying dues and that's set up as a dues paying vote based on population and use. So that's just me, and I could be wrong, but I don't know. I'm kind of looking for some guidance. It doesn't have to be today, but if you can give that feedback to Terry and I on how, because whoever sits, we should be able to say something back to them. Then they can certainly visit here. We like a seat at the table, and our agreement was you can use this as then we can at least have a seat at the table and be aware of stuff's going on, and jump in or something. And I don't know what's right or wrong, but it just doesn't feel right to us to vote.
I know the last meeting, I didn't vote on anything.
No, I don't.
And so, no, but I'm just saying, but they had a quorum. The time before that, they were like, can you make a motion? Because they didn't have a quorum to do it. So, but he said that he did talk to the attorney, and the attorney said that they want us to vote, that we are voting members. So, and I think, Reese, you had already looked into that, hadn't you?
I did some looking into it, and I know David and I talked about it. I think it comes down to what's in the bylines or the bylaws, and if it states anywhere that you need to pay dues to vote, and I don't think we saw anything that indicated that.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chair, I think, and this is just, a quick review, because Matt, you had asked me earlier, but the agreement is written such that each organization needs to determine if they're going to contribute to the funding. And if they decide not to contribute to the funding, Then it's up to the other members to decide who is a member and who is not a member.
Oh.
And just for clarification, there is nothing in writing and there was nothing suggested at the time we dropped our membership that there was any quid pro quo for the use of the facility.
Right.
We simply made it clear that our lack of dues payment did not prohibit them from meeting in our facility.
Exactly. That's, I
Continue to
didn't say
extend,
that
yeah.
very clearly, but it wasn't
Yeah.
ever intended to be.
Yep.
It's a public building.
If you come to the mic so Steve can hear you.
Chasing after this train for 14 years, okay? The one time Matt voted, the reason he voted, sorry, Eileen Krupp, the reason you voted that time, Matt, was because they didn't have a quorum without you, so they brought you into it.
I know. And see, then I feel like we're just propping up something that if they're not feeling like you can't show up and support.
They made the
then-
decision.
Yeah.
So they couldn't have voted, and that was their beginning, their reorganizational beginning of the year. They couldn't have done
It's an
anything. So
organization.
sorry to interrupt, but maybe
Oh,
they'll
no,
help.
but you're right. Yeah.
And that was, yeah, the meeting in January was the same thing. They didn't have a quorum and they needed to.
Same
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And Mr.
So
Chair.
it feels awkward.
That would be my maybe specific request if Reese is going to invest some time into it. Do they get to make that decision out of convenience or do they need to make it definitively?
Or can we make that decision? Can we make the decision that we're just there and we are not voting members?
Absolutely.
So maybe.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
I would suggest that, when we decided not to be a dues paid member, we wanted to still have some conversation, a seat at the table, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because if and when it ever does happen, it's coming through Pine County.
Right.
And we wanted to have some say so if we could about stops and crossings and such. But we did not want to pay. So if we don't want to vote, the easiest way not to vote is just not to go to the meeting. I mean, really, but I
understand exactly.
I think we said we're not gonna pay, but we wanna still have some say so if this thing ever really gets going. That's what I remember.
I think, Steve, whether we're at the meeting or not, we know when something's gonna happen and it's gonna be going through our county, so we'll still
But
be react.
I agree, Matt, but if we're gonna have anything, if we don't go to meetings and then all of a sudden things start happening, I think we thought it would be better to have somebody go to the meetings regularly. So
I know
that
we did. That's exactly what we did. Yep.
yeah, it was a strategy that we picked. And you can always abstain, I guess, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think the big thing is we need to figure out whether or not when it's convenient for them, we vote or not vote, or because there could be a time where they don't want us to vote either.
Well, we heard
So-
from Andrew called both Matt and then he called me because Matt wasn't going to be able to go to that meeting last time. And he said, we
I told him to
talked.
call you because I was gone.
Yeah, yeah. They did talk to the attorney and they did have a conversation and they did say that they would like us to be voting members.
Yeah.
Still,
All
so,
the time,
right.
not just when they
So
don't have a quorum.
They've discussed it and they've, that's.
And I know you were uncomfortable because I am.
I was always told we weren't supposed to.
You're
and
not.
He was looking at me saying, can you make a motion? And I'm like,
And I don't want to stay on this forever. We have a lot, but the time
Yeah.
that I did, the council was sitting at the table and they talked and said it was okay
Yeah.
as far as the
Yeah.
forming thing, but I don't
But-
know. I don't know how they reached that decision, but I don't think it was okay. So
Yeah.
personally, I am not gonna vote.
Like Dave said, though, if we can figure this out for sure, not that if it's not a quorum or whatever, because like Steve says, if you don't want to vote, then don't go. But if we're a voting member, you just can't Because there could be a time where they don't want us to vote. Not that they don't need us to vote, you know, so, and then you're gonna stand there and say, hey, I want to vote on
Yeah,
that,
it's
and
just-
then they're gonna say, well, you can't.
Yeah.
So I think just get it clear, correct?
Well, so I don't think that there's any confusion that Pine County can legally cast a vote.
Okay.
The confusion comes from does Pine County want to be a voting member, right? Because we have not really, as a board, you have not discussed or have a position, or so what, how is the representative going to NLX? Do you cast a vote if the board doesn't have, you know, discussion of what you would decide? And then the second piece is how is it the remaining members get to decide if non-dues paying members get to vote, but do they do that once or do they do that at their convenience? And to me, it seems odd that they would do it at their convenience, because that would then put you in that position of only voting when they need a quorum, which to me is just odd. So, but that, I don't know, Reese will come back with clarity as to what you can do and the rationale behind it. But clearly you've had members who have gone, Pine County members who have gone and voted in the past since 2012 or 13 when we quit paying dues. So there's no legal impediment. And Terry, you've represented that their attorneys have even said that we can vote. So I think it really comes down to you, maybe the commissioners doing some thinking as to what is your role with NLX? What do you want it to be?
That's exactly why I brought it up.
Yeah.
All right, well, thanks, guys. Housing and Redevelopment Authority, Economic Development Authority.
I sat in on that meeting. It's a good group of people. And the world has changed from the old HRA to the HRA Economic Development group. So we spent a lot of time kind of commingling, I think, some of those events. But one item that does need some action is Sandstone has applied for a grant and is moving forward with a rail study. This is for not passenger rail, for freight rail. And we have, I don't know how many, 30, 40 miles of short line railroad and 60 miles of long line railroad in our county. So I think it would behoove us to be involved with that study. Because we're not doing much with rail freight as far as industry or business is concerned. And if we're missing a boat, that'll be a shame on us. And so I suggested that we spend somewhere between $25,000 and $35,000 to be part of this. What is it, an estimated $130,000 study that's going to take place, and the city of Sandstone is going to take the lead, be the lead on this. But I believe it would be, from the Economic Development Committee's standpoint, a good place for us to be at the table.
Yes, freight is a good thing.
So Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we, and we can use ARPA money on that, that we spend $35,000, up to $35,000 to be involved with this rail study.
I'd second it.
I'm sorry, who's second?
I'd second it.
Okay.
JJ second. All right, sounds good. So we got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
So is this gonna be coming out of, I know like JJ had the 25,000 and I used 25,000.
ARPA.
So this is, but that's what we used our ARPA funds to. So each commissioner was given, you know, it's kind of talked about that they would have $25,000 to spend in their district or something. Is that gonna be out of this, or is this out of EDA money or HRA? I mean, I know it's gonna be
Well,
ARPA funds. I understand.
have
that.
my-
It's part of the whole pot.
That's what I thought, yeah. Yeah.
for the
I
city
just want to
or
clarify, because I have another district that's asking me for more money. And my understanding was that each commissioner was going to be given the, the one-time type thing. So I mean, I just want to clarify that this is not Matt's portion of that.
Not.
For his commissioner district, because I don't want that to come back and say, well, he was allowed to, so you should be able to spend more.
No, because it would come out of, I mean, it's in your district, it's in my district, it's in Josh's, it's in I mean, we all have rail going through our district.
Okay.
It's not just for Sandstone. It's for the whole
I just wanted that clarified.
mileage of rail that we have in Pine County.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes,
clarify a couple of points. I'm not sure if I misheard or not, but I just wanted to review the total project estimate is $150,000. There is a 50% match from the federal EDA. And then Sandstone is looking for partners to fund the remaining, what turns out to be $75,000.
yes.
All right, so we got a motion, second, we're in discussion. Is there any other discussion?
So are we keeping the amount broad as $25,000 to $35,000?
He said up to 35.
Oh, up to the 35, okay.
Up to 35.
And my interpretation of that is it would be 35,000 unless Sandstone found more matching funds than they needed.
Yes.
All right, Deb, do you want to call the roll?
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
Just one other quick question on the HRA EDA board. How is everybody still pretty excited and willing to work? And you're muted.
Yeah, I think they are, Josh. I think the focus has probably strayed away from the two buildings that they've been managing. Although there's a committee that is very diligent about looking after those buildings and making sure they do not suffer. It's not what we want to have happen at all. So they'll make sure those two buildings are managed. We do have a contract with a management firm to take care of the day-to-day operations on those. But the HRA does have a pretty healthy maintenance budget set aside to take care of. They've planned ahead well to take care of roofs and parking lots, windows, flooring, all that kind of stuff. So they know that they have to do that in a cycle. So the EDA side of it, I think people are very excited about. We've had a discussion about housing, kind of ties into maybe the land committee a little bit, is some of these blighted or forfeiture places that maybe the EDA could somehow figure out how to get involved there through maybe the One Roof program or Habitat type of programs where we could get some affordable housing back into those lots that are not producing anything right now. So,
So that was going to be my question, because we had talked about that at the land meeting, that we had those properties. So are they talking about moving forward on the properties that we had that are coming up this year? Is this for future?
Yeah. Kelly might be able, she's in the room, I believe, but anyway.
She just answered, yeah.
You just didn't hear. her.
Okay.
Steve, she said, yes, that would be future. And I think the focus of Kelly's presentation was just on the opportunity that might be available in the process of tax forfeiture. And I think our default position would still be that if there's an underlying city or township that wanted that parcel, that we would let them have first dibs.
And we have done that in a way in the past with Habitat for Humanity, I know, because I worked on some of those houses where there was a blighted lot in Willow River that got cleaned up and a new house got built on it and a family's living in that house. So it's all positive.
We've done it a lot. Like
Yep.
a dog sale after we clean up, give it to the government.
Yeah. Yep.
And Mr. Chair, if I could just add another comment, Josh, you had asked kind of about the enthusiasm and the participation. And so we had 100% attendance at the last meeting, which I thought was good. Everyone seems very interested, a lot of smart people. So you've appointed some really quality folks to that board. Leslie and I have a lot of behind the scenes conversations about what is the HRA EDA's role. And so on this rail study that Kathy George proposed, we thought we should run it through the HRA EDA to start them thinking about those sorts of things. We are going to be getting a tax abatement request from a developer in Pine City. And so we are planning to run that through the EDA HRA. And so Matt and JJ, especially as the liaisons, right? If you can keep your focus on what you want out of that group and help steer them, that would be very helpful.
Oh,
to
yeah,
us,
I
too.
love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for going for me, Steve. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, anytime. Those are interesting meetings. They're good people. So
All right. Anything
I have,
else?
I have another. Oh, no, we got one.
Well,
more.
yeah. Not on HRA. Okay, Snake River Watershed and one watershed, one plan.
It was interesting and overwhelming. So I was very blessed. I was able to go in an hour early and get brought up to speed on Deanna, which was really, did you say her name right or wrong?
Yep.
Which was really good for me. So one of the things that they are talking about is making it one committee. So hopefully within 6 months, it will be one committee instead of two. Because a lot of it is, you're talking about the same things with both committees. It's just rehashing everything. They're looking at hiring a coordinator that will take over and do everything. So one of, if there's projects that are coming up, she'll do public relations, she'll work on the projects, she'll work on, or he'll, whoever. So with that new coordinator position, they're looking at sending it out for a salary range. And the direction came back that they need to have a better job description so that they can get a true salary range. So they're going to be working on that. But that's one of the big changes that are coming up. Otherwise, it was just talking about the projects that are coming. They wanted to make, they wanted to pass ordinances within townships and stuff like that. And we came back and said, no, you can't. It's not this position of this board to pass ordinances as to what people can or can't do. So they're going to have to make some changes on the things that they had brought forward.
Good move.
And just to add, they had a coordinator, Snake River Watershed Management Board,
Right.
the Kanabec County does get $25,000 a year to administer the grants and that stuff kind of.
She's ready to be done.
Yeah, I a long time ago.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so she was just kind of appointed. So this isn't something new, and the grant will pay for it.
Yeah.
So the one watershed, one plan grant stuff, so, but. Cool. Well, thank you for taking that on.
I have
All right,
another
other,
one.
go ahead.
I do, yeah. So, East Central Minnesota EMS called an emergency meeting last Friday. And I know these guys have heard me beat EMS to death, but for you guys, so we belong to 11 county region.
Mhm.
And there's one coordinator that sits in St. Cloud. Then there's an advisory committee and we have one or two people from the county that sit on that. That's a separate little committee for first responders and training and stuff like that. But this group trains like our sheriff's office with naloxone, and we give them naloxone supplies through there. They come over here. They do the critical incident stress management when we have something bad happen, they organize that. So they called this meeting. That's just what they do. And there's 11 counties in it because of the opioid act or the opioid settlement and the county's money. And so it's a little bit funny, but so they think that they're gonna reach out and try to grab, they'd like to grab the whole thing, I think, to fund their EMS forever, but that's just not gonna happen.
Mhm.
But I said that I would come back to our board and just reach out to see if there's any sense that we could contribute something to that. I don't know what it's gonna be. They haven't come up with a number yet. And I said, I'm not gonna ask this board for any amount of money until you show me exactly how we're gonna use it. But I said I will ask and kind of get the consensus, and I don't want to start this down the road where we contribute to this, because the state is the one that has been contributing to this. That's the other historical part. They have a grant that helped fund that coordinator, get it started. Then the seatbelt fines all through the last, I don't know, 15 years. Well, yeah, the 10 since I've been here. A little percentage of the fines go to fund that, because it goes back out to train first responders. And the thing I want you guys to know is we are dependent on our first responders in Pine County, because we're such a big town. You know, we got the Carricks that will, you know, they beat the deputies to the scene most of the time and stuff like that. So I'm just throwing it out there. So I don't know what the number's gonna be, but I just want to know how you guys feel about that kind of support.
Mr. Josh,
Yes.
here's my feelings. The state has supported this program and they chose to support it through seatbelt fines, but I read in the paper yesterday, they think the surplus is 9.3 billion now.
Yeah.
I think the state should find some money to continue this. It is very vitally important. I think it's one of those things we gotta pound on our legislators some more about, because we're not getting any more money. And that opiate money is divided by 18 years. It's gonna get to be a pretty small amount for us. And I think that's gonna get eaten up.
Steve, I am with you on that. But I also know there's a need for this, so I'm just throwing it out there because I said I would. But the other part of this is the counties are getting 75% and the state is getting 25%. So I said, why don't we ask for that 25% from the state, because they fund us anyway. But they wanted the main reason they want to go back and see where we feel is because if one county says no, we're not, then no county's gonna do it. It's not everybody's in, nobody's in. So.
Mr. Chair, just a technical point. So if you recall back when we approved all of those documents joining the settlement, there is language in those documents that says that the local public health agency is the lead strategist for working with the the local governing body to, in essence, make the plan. And so I would think before we get too far down the road of what we should or shouldn't do with those funds, we'd reach out to Sam and have Sam, facilitate that conversation.
And you had given me that because I asked you, who can spend it? And I said that, and then there was another commissioner said, no, it goes through the pub, but it can be spent for this. But that's here nor there to me. I think it's just I think they're reaching out for some low hanging fruit instead of going down and fighting at the state level. And I'm going to give you my honest assessment of it too. That's what I think. And I think we could certainly say if seatbelts dry up, there's an inattentive driving statute that gets used. We can find some way for money. And I advise them that we have our Pine County Chemical Health Coalition. We have our public health. We have a lot of things we might be using that money for in our own county.
Well, and the last band asked at that meeting.
I know, the first responder.
Yeah, because they're not, with the opioid, they were talking, they have a lot of use out there.
Yeah.
And they were asking, it sounds like they didn't get any of the opioid settlement. And so they were asking if we could help them also. So there's so many different.
Well, they get it because they're part of Pine County.
Right, they're part
and
of it,
our officers take care of it. They're not going to get money, but
Right.
we take care of them on their opioid, like some of your ODs.
That meeting that we sat in on, the Wally was asking if we could consider them and partner with them on some of that too.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chair,
way down the road.
I'd like to quote Commissioner Ludwig, we don't know.
Right.
So I believe that the tribal governments, as part of the macro settlements, right? This is not a Pine County issue. This is a national issue, have a slice of the settlement. right? I don't have any information on that, but I believe that the tribal governments generally have some money. This is an issue that we need to have conversation on. Once we get some additional information, I think from the state, and then pull public health in. And, you know, I don't have a timeline for that yet, but we'll obviously be doing that in the next several months.
I just wanted to bring it up because I said I told them at that meeting I would bring it up, so.
All right.
I'm gonna say that you guys don't have an appetite for it.
That's what I'd say.
So I got to speak at the EMR graduation down at Pine Tech, and we'll be talking a little bit more of that coming up in our ARPA fund update. But we had 10 graduates for the emergency medical responders course. And they're going to be holding another one up at Sandstone because there's such a need that's going on and they have people that want to do it. It was fun. The majority of them were firefighters that were getting that for theirs. They were from Moose Lake and they come down into the Bruno area. So that area is getting served. They were from Sandstone. We talked about, I pulled a Steve and I asked them how many of them plan to use their education that they received from the county in our county for our residents, and they all raised their hands. And so it was just really exciting to hear that they were going to use it outside of the fire department and see what they could do to help the residents of Pine County. And they all plan on staying here and utilizing it. So, I mean, that was exciting to hear that aspect too, that, you know, the money will be staying within Pine County and used here. And there is a graduation ceremony on Thursday. And if we can get a county commissioner that can go there and speak, that would be wonderful. They're seeking for somebody. I'll be coming home from the legislative conference and I don't know if I can make it in time. But I told her I would reach out.
Sounds good. All right. Any others? No others? Okay, take a peek at your upcoming meetings and yes.
We take a 5.
Well, I was gonna ask, I assumed we would be done by noon today with the whole meeting. Do we want to take a long enough break to grab lunch before we do the ARPA discussion? Or do you want to take a 10-minute break and power through?
10 minutes.
How long do you think?
I would like to power through because I have to head to Rochester at about 2.
Okay,
How long do you think the ARPA thing's gonna take?
I think until Matt gets up and leaves. But yeah, it will take as long as you want it to take,
Okay.
or as little as you want. it to take.
15 minutes. 5-minute break, 15-minute discussion.
Okay, you're the chair again. There you go.
Yeah.
More to sit.
Some of these chairs.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
Yep, looks like Steve is there, so we should be good.
All right, looks like everybody's back. We will come out of recess and start the committee of the whole. Talking about ARPA funds update. And we'll start with a recruitment update and referral incentive program.
And so this has no funds program for it right now. There's been some discussion at Personnel Committee, and there was enough interest to request more information and a discussion for the whole county board. So Jackie has got a presentation she'll do. And then if it's something that you want to proceed with, we will have to, in the subsequent conversation, discuss where we would get money for it. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So as Dave said, I'm here to present the other information with regard to possible employee referral bonus. So a referral bonus program in today's very challenging job market, it's causing employers to rethink staffing strategies. A staffing strategy that we could consider is an employee referral bonus program. So these kinds of programs, or this specific program, has been found to improve the quality of new hires. So current employees have unique qualifications to identify and recommend great candidates to us. They already understand our mission, our culture, and we feel word of mouth is really one of the best ways to get candidates. It can increase employee retention because the referrals often match jobs and, as I said, company culture better. They are more like, these employees are more likely to work at a business longer, reducing our overall turnover rates. How does an employee referral program work? A referral program works by motivating current employees to help find potential new candidates through a referral bonus. A bonus is a payment that the employers would give to the employee as a gesture of appreciation after that the person they referred is hired and remains with the county for a designated period of time. So there are quite a few things to consider when implementing a program like this. Just a laundry list of some of the items to think about would be what positions are eligible to receive the bonus. Is it all positions or just really the hard to fill, the critical needs positions? When is the bonus in effect? Is it in effect all of the time or just during critical periods? What is the bonus amount? Is it $500? Is it $1,000? Is it something less? Is it something more? That would be a consideration for discussion. When is the bonus payable? Is half of it, for example, payable upon hire, and then the balance either at the completion of probation or some other designated period of time? Who's eligible to receive the bonus and who's not? And if there are other thoughts as far as implementation and things to consider, welcome those comments. So specifically drilling into kind of the meat and potatoes of this program, I think our critical needs are lying within the sheriff's department and specifically in the area of corrections. After doing a little bit of research, we identified that there's been a 70% decline in correction officer applications. So, and I know Rod can attest to this, the days of receiving 80 to 100 applications at a time, which happened back in, I believe, 2018, it was still occurring. Those days have gone away. And more likely we are receiving a dozen or less applications for open correction officer positions. And I think the last posting, it was 2.
We had 3, 1 showed up.
1 showed up. Okay. So there's a demonstrated pattern of decline in the applicant pool. And, you know, that's a very serious situation to be in. So looking at a snapshot of recruitment in the sheriff's department over the last 4 years, in 2018, we hired 5 corrections officers. 2019, there were 8 corrections officers, 4 dispatchers, 5 deputies, and you can see it play on through the corresponding years or through the following years, subsequent years. On the next slide, just a staffing recap. In corrections, there are 33 full-time positions and 9 part-time. Current vacancies are 6 full-time, which is 18% of the corrections full-time staff. And we have 2 part-time employees out on long-term leaves of absence, and I think we can change that to 3 now. Yeah, as of
Is that
yesterday.
included in the 6 number, or is that added to the 6 number? of vacancies?
It's separate, 6 full-time and reported 2 part-time, but now it's changed to 3.
Oh, I see.
I think to your point, there's effectively 27% of the authorized positions are not being filled right now.
Right.
So the long-term part-timers, are they looking at coming back? I mean, is there like discussion with that, or is it going to be where some of them where they do the leave of absence and then they just decide not to come back? So we've got those openings.
No, the 3 part-timers right now are on leave for various reasons.
Okay, but they're
And
intending to come back.
we would hope they would come back. Best educated guess would be 2 won't,
Okay.
but the full-timers are just vacancies, normal vacancies. We're not having like a mass walkout. It's, I'm gonna take a cop job somewhere, or I'm gonna take another job in the metro where he lives and he's a few minutes from work. And so they're good reasons, I guess. We just can't fill them once they're open. So, and it's just getting to be here and here. I don't want to say get too much, but I mean, one big thing is the wage thing is creeping up to us. I know we made some good strides but everybody's doing that out there and trying to throw some money at the situation. So.
Well, I think everybody has the same problem.
Oh,
Everybody's
exactly.
Throwing a lot of money at it.
Yeah, and I do want to make sure everybody understands Pine County is not on an island by itself. We're finding that out when we go to District 2 and our like facilities are in the same boat. They're struggling getting corrections officers.
I think the Department of Corrections, last I checked, they were down
Yes.
200 positions. So yeah, to Rod's point.
Yeah, I see, in the media, we always talk about, the nurses, which great. I mean, nurses do a great job, but they're trying to throw some money that way and a lot of different programs. And not once have I really heard an outcry for, hey, what about corrections officers and the jobs they do and the sheriff's office and the deputies out there? It's been a lot of negative, and that helps or hurts us with that negative media out there too. People don't want to get into the business, and I think we need to start working on something positive to get people in the door. Once we get them here, I'm pretty confident in our staff and our abilities that we're going to really do the best we can to keep them. Can't keep them all though.
Regarding the rest of the sheriff's department, applications for deputies and for dispatch have also declined over the years, but I don't think we're really in the same position with those positions right now as we are in with corrections. Hence the talk of a referral bonus program. We did some research as far as what are other counties doing, and I communicated with about 12 other counties, and I received back responses from most of them who thought it was a great idea. But the majority had not moved in this direction yet, but we're interested to find out, what happened here, what we decided to do. There are 3 counties that have done something, or they've started to do something with a bonus program. Brown County, Reese had a communication and found out that they have implemented a policy, and it's a $500 referral bonus policy. Stearns has a $900 referral bonus for corrections officers, and it's actually a memorandum of agreement with their union, and it was in effect for November and December of last year. I'm assuming that was a very critical period for them, but it's not in play right now. But it could be on the table again for 2022. Crow Wing County has drafted the policy, but they have not had to implement it yet, but they have it on standby, and they drafted in a $500 referral bonus. So that just a quick glimpse of what some of the other counties are doing.
I'm sorry, Jackie, how are they doing it then? Are they doing it where they get so much when they?
They are, yes.
Later?
Yep, it seemed like they're getting a portion of it when the new employee starts. And then the balance was either after the probationary period or else after the field training officer program was completed, so.
Can I ask, of those that have it implemented, have they seen a result? I mean, a positive result? Has it changed? Or is it too new for them to gather any information?
Well, two have it on standby, and Brown, I haven't been able to connect with yet,
Okay.
but I'll be curious to find out. But I don't think they've had it in play for all that long. We did ask for feedback from staff. We had a discussion at our department head meeting, and some of our department heads had reached out to their supervisors, and just initial feedback. There was neutrality. Some people, thought it was a good idea and really didn't have a lot of much to comment. There were comments such as, what if the employee doesn't work out? Then what do you do? So we would have to cover, if we implemented a policy, we would, we would have to cover that. There was a comment, would like to see a bonus program for employees who have been working here throughout forever, specifically through the difficult COVID period. I don't know if anybody
Can
else
I
in the
respond to
room
that
has
last
comments.
piece?
Yes.
I think we've been talking, having discussions for quite some time, and there's a lot of hiring bonuses, they call it out there. And our take was, I would prefer a referral bonus, because then that is in turn taking care of those that are already here and have been working through the COVID times, but tapping into that to try and add to it. So we kind of get two things out of that, instead of just throwing money at, let's please come in the door, and then we don't know what we have either. We have a referral, at least we have a good idea of what we're getting.
And so I'm sure the question on everyone's mind is, what is this going to cost? And so I don't know that it would cost a lot of money. If it is, the decision would have to be made. Is it countywide? Is it just for corrections? If it were limited to corrections, I can guesstimate, well, we have 6 open full-time positions. If we offered.
Overtime are we eating up now?
I know you asked me for the exact, I don't have the exact for this year, but it's a lot. And it's not just a matter of overtime. It's a lot of forced overtime. And I don't know if everybody understands what that is, but I can schedule overtime and people can pick it up and they're all happy because people like to get overtime. But when I have to tell you, you just work 12 hours and now you're going to work 16, well, I have to go pick up my kids. Sorry. Then that plays heavily, and that, I don't know how we put $1 to that.
So for cost of.
I'm sorry, not an answer to your question as far as the exact, but we are seeing a big rise in our forced overtime situations. And I can work on getting more detailed numbers, because we just kind of track overtime as general, but a large portion of it is forced overtime. And that's the piece we need to get away from.
Well, it'd be nice to get the point where you only had very limited overtime.
Absolutely. And over the years, we've been pretty good in our overtime, meeting our budget, as far as overtime, but right?
Good job.
Okay, yeah,
Yes,
there we go.
Rod
I'm gonna
does
look
a
for her.
wonderful job at managing his overtime budget.
Right. I'm really nervous about this year, just the way it started out,
So total cost for a program like this, I think it would be a few thousand, not thousands of dollars.
I can tell you, we're spending a lot more on overtime than that.
Well,
If we had to figure, we just take half of it. We know how much you're gonna spend the full-time money anyway.
I agree with the corrections area, to just keep it to that for now. But I think you're looking to us for some like kind of policy to where, when does the deputies take effect, or when does any one of do you look at that 20% threshold? Do you look at, or are we just doing it on a case by case basis? Because I can see other department heads as well coming to us and saying, hey, I need this in my area. And it's not a lot of money, but is this something that'll just come back to the board all the time? Or do we try to put a policy in effect that once it hits something?
Yes. So, I mean, I think the reason it's here is we know we have recruiting challenges, right? We know we have significant numbers of employees who have retired, who could retire, maybe some are leaving to take other jobs. Overall, when I talk to some of my colleagues, I feel pretty good about how we sit, but you can't look at the numbers, you know, in the jail and go, well, yeah, we have 27% of our positions are currently not, you know, filled in a way that they can be scheduled. That hurts because we're not 27% overstaffed, right? So we need to do something. There are other things. You have a slide also?
I do,
That talks about
yeah.
some other things.
Yes.
But maybe I'll just comment. What we're really looking for is what is your direction? Do you have thoughts as to?
I do, Mr. Chair. So first thing is a question. Kelly, would we have to create a budget account if we have a recruitment referral fund? And then just have a pool of money, we figure out how to do it later? How, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't.
How are you gonna come up with the money?
Well, that will be the next conversation, right? But at this
Already
stage of the
overspent.
game, Matt, I don't know that we need to answer every detail, because we can figure, if you say, we like the program, we think we should do a referral bonus, we think it should be limited to corrections, or it should be limited to these departments, it should be everybody, it should be maybe this amount of money, here's some questions we want answered yet. We can go back and we can do lots of legwork, right? And we'll have to have start date, end date. We'll have to have very specific guidance on who's eligible, who's not. Because if I'm the hiring manager, I probably shouldn't get paid a recruitment bonus to hire someone who I refer.
Right.
Right, because clearly that would not be an objective process. So I think if we get a sense today from where your tolerances and interests are, we can add a lot of detail. Right? Does that make sense?
It does. I think we have to do something to stay competitive, or we're just never gonna fill it.
Yeah. And I know some years ago, I know the personnel committee had talked about other things. This was pre-pandemic. This was, you know, seems like prehistoric now. It was so long ago, but about education, right? Because I think, Matt, you were on the committee at the time. Should we pay an educational bonus if people are not a bonus, but should we pay for people's education if they're willing to go to college, right? And we've never taken the step to do anything like that. And so now the job market is really pulling us places where we, you know, wouldn't typically have gone.
You're right. We've had this, I'm still on personnel. And we've always said money isn't everything. You know, Pine County is a nice place to work. Because it is. I understand. We have to compete.
I think the concept for me is not strange because of all the years I was in the military. Some critical job skills were always not filled. And so the military came up with a system that said, you know, if you sign up to be a nurse, a flight nurse, you're going to get extra $1,000 a year, or you're going to get more GI Bill, you're going to get this, you're going to get that. So they didn't blanket everybody because some job skills didn't take. I mean, people went into some jobs and they didn't want to go into other jobs. And so I think that's where we're at here. We seem to be doing okay in much of our workforce. But we're in a critical spot with corrections. And if we can come up with a program to get some more people in the door, and it goes in the way of a referral program, I would support it. You guys can figure out the details.
Yeah,
and bring it back to us, I think.
I support it too, Steve. I didn't make that comment but I just said we've had that conversation lots, and And, you know, Pine County has a lot to offer, but what happens is corrections is a grueling environment to work. You know, you're locked up with them, and takes the right breed of person to stay there. So,
And I guess what we're looking at is, you know, if this is something we want to pursue, I think the consensus is that who's eligible, I would assume most county employees are obviously not us, or like Dave said, you know, whatever. Reese will have a good idea on that as well, but do you want to develop it into like if certain positions, you know, if you're getting that critical, or is that something that we're not going to discuss right now? I mean, obviously, I think we're all under the same as that. Personally, I would like to see maybe what it might cost at the $500 mark and the $1,000 mark.
And can I add one piece to the cost thing? I know we're talking money. And I would just caution not to be, I was doing a lot of reading on this, not to be too, how do I say, not cheap, not the lower part of it.
Yeah.
Because it tends to gain a little more traction if it's a little more substantial and more immediate. It's what I've read and found. And the one thing to think about is like, if I'm just going to say, if it was $1,000, if the program works, we're not paying it out.
Yeah.
Because it works.
Yeah.
And I know there was talk about when do we turn it on and when do we turn it off? Maybe it's just as much as an annual review if we need it for the, you know, because we just review it annually or something. But if it's working, it should take care of itself.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, it hasn't been brought up, but what if it was split? You had the $50 or $500 referral fee and the $500 hiring fee. You know, so if I referred somebody and they took the job and they did everything they needed to do and say they stuck with the job for so long or whatever, and then they would get the other 500 as their bonus and for being a good employee and sticking it out. And
My angle to that would be, hey, if I can get $1,000 for you to hire, I'll offer you 500 of 5,000.
because I gotta pay tax on that.
Yeah, but I think the hiring bonuses are just, I think that's just trying to soak up the blood. I think to stop the bleeding is the referral
We
bonus.
had a hiring event yesterday and we had 6 people show up. So I'm happy we had 6 people show up. But I was one conversation with one of the individuals, and I didn't share this with you or whatever, but he was saying, you know, he was referring to hiring bonuses. And yeah, you know, you go to a lot of these places and they got hiring bonuses and they're really trying to attract people. And it's like, why do you want to go? There's something going on there.
Mhm.
Sometimes that can send a negative message, and then you're making these promises, and what do you really have to offer? So, I mean, I did some talking with him and that, but obviously we don't have any program in place, but it made me think about that a little bit on the hiring bonus. So,
Well, I was talking to one of your employees this morning, and he's looking at retirement, he's like, we need to do like we did in the old days and go headhunt. You know, if you like somebody that's checking you out at the grocery store at Holiday and you're an employee.
I know who you talk to.
Yep. He's like, hey, you know, if you're looking for a job, you know, go check out the county, and this is a great program and a great place to work. And that's what you need. You need somebody to go out there and sell it. Now for $500, $250 up front, $250 after, what is it, 6 months or whatever it is, doesn't seem like a lot of money to me. But the $1,000 might gain a little more traction. And I don't think it's going to cost that much more. You know, I mean, obviously it'll cost double, but the whole scheme of things, it isn't a tremendous amount. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I think we decide if we need to do it, and then we can figure out the amount.
Yeah.
But I think no matter what we do, we're gonna save money if it works,
Yeah.
because we're paying a lot of overtime.
Yeah.
something needs to change.
So.
And maybe it tweaks into, there's critical, severe.
Do we need just a consensus to move forward on it? Or
Yep, yeah, so it
is that
sounds like
enough?
consensus that Jackie will start putting a little more frame and detail to a referral bonus program, and we'll bring that back for review. Thank you. Oh, and Steve, I forgot to ask, did 13 Bravos get re-enlistment bonuses?
Hardly ever. Hardly ever. I think I got one $100 bonus once. And everybody in the state of Minnesota got that one.
All right, well, is that enough there? Thank you for doing that and.
Thanks, Jackie.
And that was.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you. And I did have the final slide with other recruitment initiatives. If I could just have 30 seconds
Yep.
on that.
Go ahead.
These are things we are doing now or that we want to do or we'd like to pursue. Rod mentioned that we had our first ever corrections hiring event yesterday. We were prepared to not have anybody, not that we're not, our glasses are half full, but you just don't know. This was the first time and we were pleased. We were very pleased with 6 people. We did take 5 applications. Whether or not they'll pan out, we don't know that, but we now know that we can put an event on, we can get some people in the door. We are having a second event, same positions for corrections, Thursday in Sandstone. So hopefully we'll get a few there too.
So if you see it out on Facebook, keep sharing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And our team has done a great job promoting it via social media with updates pictures during the event and leading up to and after. So that was fantastic. We have created a recruiting team. We're focused right now in corrections and we have a team made up of correction staff and HR staff, just brainstorming ideas, what we can do to get people in the door, to build our hiring pool or to build a hiring pool. We're very close to implementing a recruiting module in our Kronos HR system. And what that will do for us is we need to make this easy. It should be easy to apply for a job at Pine County. People do not want to apply if it's hard. If it takes too much time, no one's interested because they can move on to the next, just to somewhere else. So we have this really cool module that's about to be implemented where you don't have to fill out a paper application anymore. There's also marketing and branding opportunities that we're looking at. Videos with testimony. What's it like to work at Pine County? Why do we work here? Why do we love doing what we do? And then also increase our community presence. And we touched on this a little bit, but we need a presence in the community. We need to be at high schools. We need to be at colleges. We need to have job fairs. We need to be storming social media, telling our story and getting people to come and work at a great place. So that's where we're at.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, well, we'll move on to B then, update on current programs.
So the next, these 3 organizations, Pine Technical Community College, the U of M Extension, and Lakes and Pines, who's doing the residential and commercial rehab, they'd all be here today if we had asked them to be here. But I didn't think that was the focus of today, but I did want to do just a touch point on some of the funding that you have already approved. And I'm just going to pick a couple of slides that Joe Mulford had prepared. This is a summary of what they have for fall 2020 through fall 2021. So 148 students. I don't know what the goal of anybody was, but 148 seems like a pretty good number in hindsight. Looking to spring of 2022. So this is what is going on right now. And when you look at these, training areas, basic machining, CNA, emergency medical responder, small engine, those are real skills that the community needs. And I think that
turning some away there, are they full? Have they had to turn some away on like nurses and stuff?
I think the nursing is proved extremely popular.
Yeah, it looks like there's a waiting list.
This is just looking at 2022 and 2023. We've done some business classes for local businesses. This is the slide that I think is really helpful. So the far right column is looking at fall of 2022. Typically, people do not enroll in community and technical colleges in February, the year before, right? So to have 21 students already enrolled, the sweet spot for the technical and community colleges is typically the summer, right? So these are really positive numbers. And you'll see that there's NA for Pine City. That's because those kids get the Franzen scholarships. So I think that was everything on Joe's slides that I wanted to share. The other info is in the packet. I don't know that we need to talk about those programs unless you had questions, as much as just acknowledge that they are ongoing.
I did talk to Joe the other night about electrician and plumbing. So he's gonna look at some other classes too, to see if we can get some more people into different areas, which would be good.
All right. U of M extension.
Yep, so the extension and then the Lakes and Pines, I wasn't gonna project there, I think they had 1-page handouts in
Okay.
the packet. With the residential and commercial rehab, there is at last count $200,000 that's unspent. And so I want to throw out the idea that maybe we need to turn that spigot off and potentially reallocate those funds. Because if you look at our list, we've got a lot of other good ideas that we're gonna have to make some hard choices on. So I just want in the back of your mind, know that there's about $200,000 there that has not been used yet.
That might be a good thought, David.
What is gonna be the process for when we lay this out and come up with a number? When are we gonna do that?
As soon as Kelly's done. Kelly's gonna talk next about the
Okay.
final rule. And
Okay.
then we can review all the projects on that list and anything else that's not on the list.
We can decide the number today as well.
I called out what I think the handful that would be really helpful to get some direction on today. And so you don't have to make final decisions today, but the further you want to go, you're welcome to go as far as you want.
Okay. It's all you now.
Okay, so I just have a few slides to go over on the final rule. Just to give you guys a background, when ARPA first became a thing, the US Treasury set out an interim final rule. So they knew they needed to have guidelines to what we could do with the money. And so they put out this interim final rule really fast so that we had some guidelines to start with. And then in January, the final rule came out, and it was a little interesting. If you think back to CARES Act, we got the money, we got some direction, we tried to make some decisions, and then all of a sudden more information would come out and we'd be like, well, under this guidance, actually, we weren't supposed to do that. And so it made the audit kind of interesting because I had to keep the documentation of why we made that decision early on. It's not that once you told us we couldn't do that, we went and made that decision. No, we made it early on when we had this, X guidance. Where now with the American Rescue Plan Act, it's kind of the opposite. Now that we have the final rule, it's broader. And so I'm just gonna kind of run through just some reminders of what the ARPA looks like, and then kind of the big things that changed during the final rule. So you guys have seen this exact slide before. The general criteria that ARPA gave us was that we could use the funds to respond to the public emergency. We could use the funds to respond to the negative economic impacts. And when doing that, it gave us a little bit of guidance on, because you could come up with any type of program really under that. And they said you need to identify a need or a negative impact of COVID-19, and then you need to identify how that program that you're coming up with will meet that need. And so as we work through some of our programs, I think about the Pine Tech program, for example. I mean, we know that there's a need for training for our local businesses. We know that those graduates of our local high schools really got the short end of the stick when their last years of high school were non-existent. And so we were able to do that with those types of programs. We always knew that we could replace lost revenue. I spent, I don't even want to say how many hours trying to figure out our lost revenue. Did we actually lose revenue with the crazy calculations they were having us do? If we do it this way, maybe we did. If we do it this way, we didn't. And how long it took townships how many townships that we worked with trying to figure out, did they actually lose revenue or not? We always knew that we could use investments in water, sewer, broadband. And then the last category that they had originally given us was this premium pay for essential workers. And that was something that we didn't really touch on much, but it was a category that was available. So now that the final rule has come out, there's a whole variety of changes of which all of them in my mind really broaden how we could spend the money. You know, the negative economic impacts. The original rule had given us a list of ideas. You know, it said, you know, it's not limited to these things, but here's some ideas. Well, now under the final rule, that list is even bigger. It's still not limited to only the things on that list, but it gave more ideas. You know, capital expenditures, those were kind of a big question mark under the interim rule. Could we go buy a dump truck? However, now under the final rule, the guidance actually tells us that, yes, you can go buy a dump truck. It expanded the provision to restore and government employment. So previously it said that we could only hire up to our pre-pandemic level. And now it says that we could actually hire past our pandemic level. It expanded broadband, water, sewer type of language so that it makes those funds easier to use. The big one that is huge for Pine County, for our cities and townships, for actually, I mean, I think it's 70% of the recipients is the lost revenue portion. So previously like I said, we had this terrible calculation we had to do to figure out if we had lost revenue. And I mean, counties were hiring consultants and spending a ton of ARPA money to have consultants figure out if they had lost revenue. And in the final rule, they came down with that jurisdictions now, if they receive less than $10 million, you can just assume that it's all lost revenue. No calculations needed. You just can take it as lost revenue and use it on government services. You know, government services in my mind is things that we do in our day-to-day business. And the other part of that lost revenue is that you can't use it to do things that conflict with the purpose of ARPA or COVID-19 mitigation practices. I had sat really long trying to think of an example, and then I asked Dave and he had a really quick, easy one of, you can't pay people not to take the vaccine with this money. That would be an example of what that could look like, but you can't do that. You can't use the funds for debt payments, so we couldn't go all of a sudden pay off our bonds. We also can't buy a dump truck and pay for half of it with ARPA funds and half of it with debt. You can't use it to pay legal judgments or settlements if you're putting it in that lost revenue category or at all. And you also can't do extraordinary payments into pension funds, which is not something we were looking to do anyways.
In that general guidance, you also can't just put it into fund balance, right? It
Yes,
has
we
to
get
be
to that on the next
Oh.
slide, Dave.
I know they're.
You even saw these. So with that lost revenue piece, besides kind of that little list of things that you cannot do, you can't just roll it into your fund balance. So we can't just take it out of our ARPA fund and move it into our general fund and go, oh, we're done. Because we still have to be able to report to them what we bought with it.
Gotta spend it.
Right, you have to spend it. And so when we're doing that, we will need to, we want to be smart on how we spend this money. Obviously, we've known that from the beginning. However, now we have kind of a more open door for spending the money. So what can we do to mitigate our levy increases for 2023 and beyond? Really is something that we need to think about long and hard when we're looking at how are we going to spend this money. I mean, you don't want to go buy things that all of a sudden 2, 3, 4 years from now are going to just cost us more money, because then you're not helping the levies. But I mean, like one idea that's on your list is pay for the county's COVID health insurance expenditures with this money. Well, in the end, then we have less health insurance rate increases. And so in the end, that helps the taxpayer. And so it's that type of thing that we'll want to look to using these funds for, that are acceptable expenditures and help us in the long run. The other part of the lost revenue piece is it would be fine and easy to just take all of Pine County's money and call it lost revenue. In April, I have to complete a report that tells them how much we're taking in lost revenue. And if I could put the whole $5 million, that would be great. However, I don't want to do that because we have some of those programs that fit much better under the ARPA category, rather than me trying to defend that, well, normally we pay Pine Tech to send our high school seniors to college. Well, no, normally you don't do that. So there are certain programs that we have going that I want to keep under a regular ARPA category. But there's so many things on our project list that really can just fit under regular government services and we can do under lost revenue. So with that today, in April, I do have to complete a report that tells them we are going to use our money $1 million for specific categories and for something $1 million for lost revenue. You know, that all really kind of depends on how projects flush out. So, I mean, today I would be looking for direction at some point that you guys are okay with me just going ahead when I complete that report, figuring out where the numbers need to be. Otherwise, questions and I mean, Dave's gonna go over projects and need the clicker back, Dave?
I do not.
Throw it. No.
So just to follow up with Kelly's last point. So she'll fill out the reports based on the direction that you give today and subsequent to today. You don't have to make a particular finding of A, B, C, or D. You just need to have some direction as when you go through and discuss this, and she'll fill out the report to accurately reflect that. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
Are we gonna decide as we go along? Are you gonna go through them like that, or can we make comments on the front end before we go in?
I defer to the chair.
What are you looking for?
I think maybe it would be helpful to have comments on the front end. On the back end, I was thinking we probably should run through all of these to determine the interest level and whether they should be on the list or not. And if so, if there's a sense of what level they should be on the list. And then obviously there may be things that are not on the list. And we also learned with our CARES Act funds that we kept a little bit of contingency, and in hindsight, that was a really good idea.
So, Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
I just gonna think out loud. For me, when I think we should have a certain amount of money spent on things we know we have to buy anyway that costs us a lot of money. You know, and then I get we have some new things starting in here, new programs, and I support that too. But I think there's some big ticket items that'd be nice to pick off that we know we have to levy for. I'm just gonna leave my comment vague and open.
Okay. So you're gonna take it?
All right, so if you're in the second page of what is the memo that was in your packet, I'm just gonna follow along here if that's okay with folks. So we start out with the rehab program, the work fast and the extension mental health, just to see those dollar numbers. So if the board were interested in, I guess, turning off the spigot on the county-wide housing commercial rehab and reserve those $200,000 that are remaining, I would be interested to know that. And that would come from the 851. So the funding for that program would then go down to 651,000.
And they're kind of tapped out anyways, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, I think that's smart.
I think that might be a why, because that we're gonna need that 200,000 for other projects that we've deemed to be moved ahead of the line.
All right, so we will work with Lakes and Pines to recapture that. Then on that letter A, those are the jail enhancements. You approve the 40,000 up to the 40,500 for the study. The study will help us figure out how much of that million, that really is just a placeholder number, right? So I don't know what the right number is. I don't know, Rod, if you have any more thoughts. It can't be more than that is the perspective I'm taking.
Can you guarantee that?
Nope, nope. The broadband grant program, again, that's just a placeholder. Leslie has been working with our consultant. Those would be funds that we would use to incentivize providers to put in broadband, and there would be a grant program that they would apply for.
Is she happy with that number?
I think, I mean.
Or do we have any, is that just a number? Or is-
That's a number, and when you get to the bottom of the page, right, of the spreadsheet, you'll see that we're negative a little bit.
Mhm.
Why am I having trouble finding that page? We're just shy. So we started out negative 188. Now we're positive 12.
I just don't know if that, I guess broadband has been a big talk.
So
I'm wondering if that's enough.
it's not. I mean, it's not enough
Yeah.
to do everything.
Yep.
In the scheme of things of our $5.7 million, it's probably as good a number as any. There is significant other money for broadband.
Okay.
At the federal and state level, right? Vehicles and equipment. And so this would be primarily to fund a tandem dump truck and then a sheriff vehicle. And then there is some funding left over. If there were a comfort level at 350,000 and you wanted to give direction on that today, that would be helpful. Because the 400 was a round up number. So,
350 is the number?
yeah, if
I
you,
would support that.
I would too.
I would too,
Mhm.
so
350.
the health insurance COVID costs, the insurance committee has reported we had like 113 or 118-ish thousand dollars in 2021. So 300,000 is just kind of a guess of a number going forward. Kelly explained why that's valuable to the taxpayer and to the employees.
I support that one too.
Mhm.
This letter E, the youth programming 4-H coordinator, that came out of a conversation with Suzanne Heinrichs and Commissioner Holland about can we do something on the front end to help kids? And so Steve, I don't know if you want to just talk on that a little bit. I just committed to the
Well,
idea that there'd be something.
I asked,
cheap.
I asked David to put it in as a placeholder because I believed for years that we can make a difference. And I think Project Rise has kind of convinced me that there's some benefits to doing stuff with kids, especially our more vulnerable kids, that would actually give us a cost benefit down the end, at the end of their, teenage years, so to speak. And we can never get there. And this would give us a couple of years to try a grand experiment without spending levy dollars.
Yeah, and this would be a hard one it's a hard one even where it's at, but it would be pretty much non-existent if we actually wanted to try this, just to see what happened. So I think you're on to something there.
And I did reach out to Suzanne and Jan Derdowski to ask them what they would need if we were going to do something. And staffing is what they need money for to do programs. If there was a consensus that you're interested in something along these lines, they would put together a program and give you some options and they would lead that conversation as to what does this really look like.
Okay.
So-
What's the time? Oh, 80, I see it. I read 80 grand.
I mean-
a year. So you got a 2-year program there?
Seriously, that's one out of home play or one of the budget busters on Terry's.
Question.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
That's what I look at, Josh. It's if you save one kid, you paid for the program.
Yeah.
So if there's a consensus, it seems that I'll reach back out to Suzanne and Jan to get them to put some program ideas and some actual dollar amounts together and come and make a presentation and have conversation. The community health blue zones, this was Coming out of the strategic planning meeting, community health was identified as a priority. If we want to do something, it's going to take some money. Sam has been very active in having initial conversations with other folks and agencies in the community, insurance companies, health providers, schools. And so this is a placeholder. If we're serious about doing something, then we would need to put some money to it.
Is it that much money to kick it off or what?
Yes, it's probably more. So this would be seed money to do fundraising and really get the health insurance companies and healthcare providers and some others to step in. Because you end up to have to literally, Steve, I'm going to quote you, to move the needle, right? On public health, you have to have long duration, right? This is not a 2-month program. It's a 3, 4, 5-year program.
I get the program and I understand that whole concept. I just don't know what kind of buy-in they're gonna get from the company. So we might be throwing money down a hole. And I don't know the answer to that, but.
So I gotten a phone call on this yesterday. And what they were saying is that the blue zone that they've been hearing is where they actually tell you what kind of foods you can eat and they make all this other stuff. And I didn't hear that in Sam's presentation, where they were going to dictate to people what they could or couldn't do or what they could or couldn't eat or drink type of thing. But that's what she's saying that the true blue zone is. Oh, hi, Sam. Good timing.
I was watching on YouTube. Real fast.
Yeah, I did not see that in your presentation, but can you answer? I mean, because I'm not in support of that part, but I think that what you had talked about, how having people do healthier decisions for themselves is a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, blue zones touches from a lot of different areas. So one thing it does is it provides, support for individuals who want to make healthier choices of, hey, maybe it's not that you don't have to buy chips. It's maybe put the chips up on a higher shelf so they're not right at eye level and looking right at you and going, eat me. It gives tips and tricks for individuals to do those sorts of choices. It's not going to ever be like, don't eat chips. But the bigger picture is really looking at sustainable changes we can make in policies, in the environment with walking paths or policies around walking meetings that employ, way that grocery stores are structured. Bigger environmental changes versus just mostly individual choices. So I was watching on YouTube, so I don't know how much of a lag there was as I was jumping in here to kind of explain the money piece of it. And it's really to pay for a person to actually support the community. So it would fund an FTE to support the person going out and working with the churches, with the schools, with the businesses, to support them in doing these things. And there's also theoretically some money built in there for those entities in the community who are interested in doing this. Maybe it's money is the thing holding them up. They could potentially do some mini grant funding in there. So let's say schools want to do something really cool around social emotional health or getting the kids moving and they need some funding to pay for that. Great, we can do some mini grant work within this pot of money as well. So some of the money would actually go back into the community. But it does take money to staff.
To maybe expand a little bit on that, the program isn't going to dictate what anybody can or cannot do, right? The program is to try to help people make better choices and to help them understand how to set themselves up to make better choices. And the blue zones in particular comes out of research on longevity and where do people live longest and what do they do and what do they eat? And if you ask those people who are living long and living long, healthy lives, it's not because they were maintaining a rigorous, unappealing diet. It was because what they were naturally doing was encouraging and building on their longevity and their health. Does that make sense?
It does. And the fun thing about blue zones is they have these Power 9 things that they always focus on. Only one of them is really focused, well, 2, I guess. One of them is drink wine. One of them is diet. I mean, nobody's gonna complain about, hey, drink some wine at night. But the other ones are entirely not related to diet at all. So it's really focusing on building community and social support and all these other things that we can really focus on to support people's mental health, which in turn supports their physical health. So there's a lot of things beyond diet and forcing you to do things. We're not going to force you to do anything.
Moving on the next page, that letter G, election equipment. So that decision was made.
Just a second. I don't have to leave. I know that Sandstone Township is on the list there. If there's anything, questions you have for me before I go, I've got a public accuracy test this afternoon.
Well, I'll get that in there.
Okay. Thanks.
Good day, ladies.
So you made the decision earlier on this item. So Pine County Sheriff's Office staffing, we know the sheriff has presented budget requests in the past that have not been funded. And so this is to fund an additional position in the sheriff's office. And I don't know, Sheriff, if you want to add to that or if the board has questions.
Yeah, and again, it's an estimate. There might be a trade of staff to gain a staff or reallocate that staffing, but it would be an increased cost because of the new position. So that again is a number estimate on what that would look like. It does have a tie into the position that I'm looking for would have a tie into COVID and all of the other stuff we've looked at, just because of the oversight would be opioids, the oversight would be, how we allocate our staff. So there is a direct tie into the COVID, in my opinion, on how that would positively impact the sheriff's office, which obviously will positively impact communities that we serve. I don't have a final number to that, again, in all honesty, what that would look like. We have been talking about a position, Becky and I, and grading it out. We haven't come to that. So that might be a couple years of difference if the trade happens, or however you want to look at that. So,
Mr. Chair. Or Dave, are we just paying that for 1 year?
That's an estimated 1-year cost. So
Oh, it's not, the staff's only there for 1 year.
no, this
the
was,
expectation would be to continue.
What? For permanent?
Yes, that would be my ask. I don't see the benefit to doing a 2-year staff plan. It would be an ongoing position.
I would like to see that one come through personnel, with the idea that we can connect it.
I
child,
think that's probably a good idea.
childcare, foster care. This is just an idea that we know we have a childcare shortage. We know we have challenges with foster parents. And so this is some money for Becky and her staff to work with partners to develop some programs. Letter J is some medical bags and AEDs for squad cars. Letter K, the jail body cameras. This is at this point an idea. There's been some conversation from MCIT where they are, I think, pushing counties to consider cameras for their jail staff. And so if we were going to do that, this would be a source of funds.
I like that idea. It protects everybody.
Yeah, historically, you save that much money on what you're gonna get sued for.
Yeah.
A lot of facilities going to the body cameras. Not that they do, we should, but we definitely should look at it.
And not that I want to go down this too deep, but would that at all coincide with the sheriff's stuff too, or?
That's the first place we looked.
Yeah, okay.
It's just, why not use what we have?
Yep.
That's what we're looking.
Okay.
Is that getting common in the jails?
Yeah, it is.
How common has it been on the road, for the road, like are other departments taking it on for deputies too, or
Yeah, it is.
is it coming?
It's the norm.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's.
Everyone's trying to figure out how to pay for it. So someone's falling over, they're trying to pay for it.
Okay.
He's muted too.
All right, that was enough.
Steve, your phone's on.
Don't think that with you.
The Hinckley Transportation Economic Impact Study. So this is the partnership project that we've talked of with Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures to focus on transportation up at the Highway 61, 23, 48 area. And they have a consultant with a proposal for $131,600 to do that study. They're asking if we would split it with them. This is a project that if we could make a decision today, it would be helpful because then they would move forward with it.
Yeah, you briefed us on this, or was that in a committee? I can't remember. I support this.
Yeah.
This is that whole.
So if there's
You got a motion?
consensus for that, I'm gonna
Or
make a
just-
motion on this one just because it'd be a partnership
I'll
with
move it.
Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures.
I'll actually second.
I'm sorry.
Any other discussion?
Oh, no, you're fine. You moved it. Josh seconded it. I'll vote for it. No, we're good.
Is there any other discussion on it?
No, I'm excited to find out what they come up with because we've got so many other plans that are going to be benefited by whatever this happens to be. So, yeah.
All right, Deb, you want to call a roll call?
Sure. District 3, Commissioner Lopkin.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
All
District 1, Chair Holland.
He's busy at the moment.
Yeah.
Yes, I've put my eye drops in.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
All right. Letter M is the Pine County Sheriff's Office radio amplifier. There's communication challenges with radios in some of the school buildings. And so this would work to fix that at East Central Schools. And Sheriff Nelson, I don't know if you want to give more insight or if the board has questions on that.
Again, I believe that's partial and not a complete project, so we'd have to work with East Central and get all of that and get a final cost on that. We looked at it a couple years ago, and it did make the project for them. But our radios are totally dead inside that building.
Even in a car,
This
even in the car to car, the local, they're dead. If you slip down off repeater, is it dead?
well, no, we could probably do that, but no one's gonna do that if it's a critical situation. We're not gonna do
Okay.
critical stations. And then dispatch can't, and our partners can't, and it comes.
Yeah, I was just thinking if there was a mass shoot or you had a incident at the school, you'd have to have them guys go to car at least now until we get it fixed or something.
And I don't know if it'd make it outside the building.
Is that the only school that has this issue?
Pine City, this building, we had to put one in for our training area. That's our emergency operations center down here as well. So any large structure creates problems. East Central's the worst. Pine City is probably the next worst.
Does the school kind of help a little bit?
That's the goal, and that's where we tried to find funding a couple of years ago, where we're identifying those. Obviously, if it's more than the 46, then we would go to them first.
Mhm.
To say, and it really is the whole school, it's fire, it's.
Yeah, that's a public safety issue there.
Yeah, huge,
Yeah.
huge.
Gotta fix that.
Thank you.
The Sandstone Freight Rail and Transportation Study Board took action on that earlier today. Countywide marketing, this would be to allow exactly that, trying to get better marketing and more of a unified effort. I know Leslie, in some of her initial conversations with the cities and the chambers and such, that came back. Well, in fact, when we did our gap analysis for this through the study committee, that came back as a gap, the countywide coordination of that. The next one, Matt will take care of, the Sandstone Town Hall Septic and Well.
Yeah, well, that's, I will. So they have, the reason they're using our building is because they don't have any plumbing in their building. And they don't have a lot of money. So they reached out to me and said, could you help with some of the cost on putting the sewer in a well? So I went back to kind of what commissioners have been doing in their districts, and so I said I would support a 25,000, so that's what it is.
And so that would, if you're comfortable with that, I think a motion on that would be appropriate. And I just have to throw my 2 cents in. We have 2 commissioners who have not done commissioner directed projects. And so it'd be helpful to clarify today whether they felt we should be reserving $25,000 for their future proposal, or if we should not.
Want to deal with that first, or I'll move this?
Can I ask a question about this?
Yeah.
So is there going to be that this has to happen? We're not going to give them the money and then they can choose whether, because they've been working on this building for
It's
so long.
project specific.
Okay,
It started out like that and she got steered to project specific.
okay.
And so part of the motion that you'll make, I presume, will be that it will be a reimbursement.
Yeah, I guess I don't know what their funds are. but
That's the best way,
yeah,
because we,
reimbursement.
otherwise we don't have any documentation.
Yeah,
for the
I think
expenditure.
that's what my motion will be reimbursed to $25,000 on their sewer and well project.
Just like if there's a sewer issue where people now can get the like no interest loan and then they pay it back. Is that what it would be?
This would be different than that. This is just,
This
this-
is government.
yeah, this is just like, Terry supported a project with the city of Hinckley for a water and sewer study. And you supported the Sturgeon Lake water level, so Matt is supporting Sandstone Township.
I'll
We don't
second
want
it.
to take away a project that might go to some homeowner, there's, in that one. So government,
Well, right, I read it and I just,
no, I get you.
I did a lot of building. I guess I've not started a project because I didn't have enough money. I just try to get my mind
Yeah.
around
Well,
how do you start and run out and then why?
This has been, how long ago did they start this? Town
6
hall?
years.
It's been a long time in the working.
Yes.
So that's, if it's the reimbursement, So I seconded it.
So we have a motion and a second. Some discussion I have just on it because is Sandstone Township that wanted us to take over a road too at one point? Or was that a different township?
What's that?
Was Sandstone Township that wanted us to take over a road at one point too? I just remember Mark LeBrun telling us that if this is the township, that their levy is extremely low.
That's Berry Township,
That's very,
Yeah, they are. They are.
the government road.
all right. So, I mean, these guys are just flat out running into hardship. They're not.
Well,
just-
they have brought it up in the last year for gravel. They've raised for gravel.
Okay. I just sometimes, like Mark had said, if they're just trying to be as cheap as possible, but not, they still have a responsibility to take care of stuff, so. But. Okay, any other discussion?
I
All right,
just,
or, yeah.
I just have, no, for the, I guess when I made a motion for the water concerns on Sturgeon Lake, I was looking more towards the experience with Pine County Soil and Water and the whole environment. I guess I didn't know it was committing, the allocations for, because I mean, we have a city hall in our town that they've been in my ear for,
Yeah.
even before I
Been
ran.
there.
That, right. I mean, they need handicap ramps, they need, they've also been currently petitioning our senator down there also, and I got a message to bring down there with this. Just finally,
This has been a process where the policy has been made after the fact. And I just started to call them commissioner directed projects. So,
what's a reimbursement? When you say reimbursement, what do you mean?
That-
It's-
that's
it's gonna be
Sandstone.
reimbursed.
They have to finish the project.
they have to spend the money and present some documentation that says we spent, $25,000 on this septic system.
Yeah.
And then we'll reimburse it so that we have some documentation as to what the funds were used for. Because otherwise, if we just write them a check, then we don't know if it meets the criteria of the law, which says you can't, use it to borrow, combine it with borrowed money to buy a vehicle. You can't use it to build fund balance. You can't do some certain things.
So an example is Hinckley City they haven't been paid yet for the money that we had talked about and that we agreed that they could have for their study. And so they're submitting a bill and then they'll get paid for that. So
All right, any other discussion? All right, Deb, you can call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldam.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Letter Q and letter R refer back to the sheriff's office for some masks. And That 20,000 is proposed for some general training, just to help beef up their training regime. I've added an R1, the Sioux Line Trail, because I apparently missed that on this list, but it is on the spreadsheet. So the total should be okay, but that Sioux Line Trail, $15,000 was approved earlier today. Then there's $13,000 for a squad camera and associated equipment. $10,000 for food shelves to help them.
And Riders is the one that approved it there.
Letter U is, I'm calling it HHS directed aid. And I know when we had the Dunn Square fire, there was some pronounced need that just didn't have an easy source of funding. And so I worked with Becky and she approved some minor, few $100s to help people when they had lost their homes. And so that grew into this idea, maybe we just identify an amount of money that over the next several years, if we have those sorts of urgent needs, we could use that. So if that's agreeable, I would ask for specific direction on that because that would just be helpful.
Do you want a motion or, okay. So someone want to make a motion on the HHS directed aid?
I'll make do we need to do a separate fund for this? Then we can just, okay. So I'll make a motion that we put $10,000 towards, for human services to use towards assisting families, people.
All right, we have a motion. We got a second.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you, Steve. Any other discussion? All right, Deb, you can call the roll.
District 3, Commissioner Lofgren.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Now,
And then the last two are just some mental health and wellness support for the sheriff's office. And then a well water testing program, which would leverage a USDA grant. And so I got everything I needed today, which was the specific direction on those few programs. I guess overall thoughts on moving forward based on the decisions today, we probably are positive about $60,000 or $62,000 with the 200 from Lakes and Pines and then cutting the 50 from the vehicle replacement program. So there's a little bit of wiggle room now, but if there's anything that's not on this list that maybe should be, today is a good time to have that conversation as well.
And there's still no contingency.
I would say that it's not much of a contingency on 5.3 million, but that 60,000 is our contingency right now.
Yes.
That we have for contingency. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And then maybe equally important, if there's anything on this list that just is not resonating, that would be good to share. Based on earlier conversation and consensus, we'll have to come up with a number for the employee referral bonus program, but that's not a huge number. That would be less than the 60,000 contingency.
So you had asked earlier, this would be for Steve and for Josh. Do you want to put the 50,000 on here for your districts if there are needs?
I don't really have nothing. I mean, anything we've.
I didn't think I did either.
Yeah.
It will find, my feeling is it will find you at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how you feel, Steve, but I think most of ours it's kind of a whole county type of deal anyway, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, we've done some good things with Pine Tech. That's in our district.
Yep. Yeah, tremendous amount there.
That. But we'll see how, tomorrow the wheels might fall off of something.
Okay, what else we got?
That's it.
That's it? Is that enough or you need more direction or anything? That'll work.
I guess my only question is, so that laundry list we just went through, we didn't cut anything, so does that mean everything on there's a go?
No,
I think there's a.
numbers aren't set.
The only.
We cut 200,000 out of the rehab program.
Those are the vehicles.
Yeah.
But like
I-
even the, like the 4-H thing, I think that's not a, I mean, we're gonna get some more information, but then.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, can the sheriff go buy his AEDs and his masks and that stuff? Because he's gonna email me tomorrow and ask.
Here's what I would say, Kelly. I would say you guys go back and run based on what you've heard today, come back and make sure we're talking the right numbers. And I don't think he has to buy them between now and the next meeting. And it gives everybody that pause that sometimes we need.
You might need to have it by the next meeting if you can see his face. Did you need it sooner than?
If I could speak.
I can give them some months. I'm part of it.
I
So-
think the longer we
can
delay.
just do it
it's gonna be next
The
year
one for
before
the
we see
Cross
stuff.
Lake,
And-
that one?
and I don't, I can't say that on.
I do not
everything, But
need it.
some of the equipment stuff.
I think I have it on
there's a
computer,
list,
too.
and if anyone's bought ammo in the last 2 years, apparently there's war going on that they're diverting more ammo toward. So, just one example, ammo's not on my list, but it's just one of those things where you assume it's available until you go order it, and then it's, well, we'll put you on the list, and it might ever not come in. So there are a couple things that concern me with getting on the list. So again, any direction would be great.
So we're talking about like the medical bags. Are we talking jail cameras? And then you're talking the masks with the filters and.
Those kind of things would be, I think, a list.
And on the jail cameras, I heard a strong, I heard a consensus that it's a good idea. So Rod, I think, got the message that he's gonna be working on a specific proposal and that will work its way through for county board approval.
So then what you really need, Jeff, is the permission for your equipment.
Yeah, if I could do the medical and the masks, which are basically medical too.
So J and Q,
What's that?
J and Q.
Yes, if I could get those started, that would be.
So I'll make a motion. Do we need a motion or just a?
I think as long as there's a consensus. we don't know what it is.
Get mine.
Yeah,
Just for clarification, what are the masks?
That's my
CBRN
question.
filter?
So, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Matt, ask first.
Matt was louder.
There's a bunch of them.
So our AEDs are aging out.
They just need a new battery and a new.
Not entirely, no. And my thought with those is, there is a possibility of a grant that will fund all of them. So again, that might be coming back this way. I forget I said that and I'll spend it, but the old ones, there's a lot of places we could push them out in the community, is my thought. That, we could give them to schools or churches or civic groups or what have you that could use those. There's still, some of them are usable. Some of them are end of life, no repairs on the ones that have crashed on us. But this would get everything, when we do it, we would do the whole fleet. So everyone's standard again, instead of that one's, 5-year-old technology. This one's new. This one, you push that button. This one, it has a screen and it's whatever. So we would standardize things within our fleet. And then anything that's usable, we would push out.
Okay, thanks.
My question was, what are the masks with the filters? They're like a gas mask or are they? Okay. Sounds good.
And Terry, you had asked about a motion, and just so that in my mind, it's helpful to have a motion when we're doing something that involves an agreement with an outside agency. If it's just a regular purchase that the county is buying something, it's, in my mind, it's less necessary because it will go through the normal approval process.
Okay.
If that, so I kind of make it up as I go, but that's the rationale.
Sounds good.
All right. Is there anything else come before the board? We're gonna adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you all.
luck on your travels. See you long way to go.
Thanks, Josh.
Long way to travel.
Yeah, not a problem. We'll see you sometime next week, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
I know.
Okay.
I know. You go like by